What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Not Another Isekai. I'm Tyler, and of course, we're talking about all of the seasonal anime that are coming out this season, that are already out. I think by now, every show that is supposed to air has already aired. A few weeks in at this point. Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Um, today, today we're finally at that point, right? Today, you know, I have finally done what I've been, a little bit procrastinating on just a tiny bit, but pretty much every show that is being talked about today is every show that I have wanted to talk about. So, we at least have a taste of everything I feel like is worth watching. We still have a few rollovers from last season. Um, and then there are a couple shows that I've dropped. We'll get to that when we get to them. And there's also, I think, like one show where I'm kind of on the edge about, where I'm like, okay, if it doesn't get better next episode, we're probably not going to continue talking about it. But for the most part, ton of really good anime this season. I think I'm actually going to steadily be covering more than I did last season, but that's a good thing. That just means there's more stuff of good quality. But yeah, that's it. Let's start. I pressed. It always happens every time. Okay, first up, as always, we got My Hero Academia season 6, episode 16. This was a lot of building around what has been happening. Right, the last episode or two has kind of been that where where this is like, okay, the big fight happened. Right, we took, I don't know, what was that, like 12, 13 episodes, 14 episodes with the big fight, the hospital thing, the Nomu, Shigaraki, all that good stuff. And now it's like, all right, it's over. We're not really seeing too much on the villain side, especially this episode. Now we're seeing more on the hero side and how that's affecting. And it was interesting because the episode, I think, was titled like Todoroki's Terrible Family or something like that. But for like the first half of it, we're getting more of Hawks, which was interesting. Because Hawks is in a tough spot because he is a hero. He went undercover with the villains, and he's in a really odd spot because I think he is one of the biggest examples of what the villains are trying to push, like the narrative they've been trying to push, which is how good are these heroes? Why do we just blindly put our support in them when, if you look at them with a critical eye, there might be some really bad stuff that they've been doing, but they mask it as justice, right? I think that's like the main thing the villains are trying to push, to kind of knock the heroes off balance. And also, just if people don't trust heroes, well, that's great for villains, right? Because then they have way more leeway to do what they want to do. So we get a lot of Hawks. We get some of his backstory, where his dad killed someone, and eventually he was caught by Endeavor. Specifically, saying finally taken for justice for murder. Hawks became a hero, which we already knew. He was kind of doing it to save his family, right? To kind of get out of things, help his mom out. Even though he'll say he cut ties with his mom the same way he cut ties with his dad, it was something that he always really wanted to do, was help people. Even when he was asked by, I don't really think they were police, maybe, I don't know, like recruiters or something, he was like, will I be able to help people? Like that was like his main focus. It wasn't even the money, which the mom was, very concerned about. And to me, the mom character had like a big roller coaster because she just seemed like, what's the word? When you help someone with their, basically continue their bad behavior. He's instigating, antagonizing. Those aren't the words. Anyway, whatever the right word is, basically towards the dad is what I was trying to get at, where, it felt like she was just sort of helping the dad, continue to be bad, where it's like, hiding him out, and sort of just going along with whatever he says, not really caring when the dad gets like abusive towards Hawks. Um, and so we get further along, and again, like, she really just cares about the money. She gets very hysterical, and I'm like, man, the dad was awful, but the mom kind of sucks too. But then later on, especially towards the end of the episode where Hawks sees, sees that the mom is gone, it sort of does give you a little bit of hope that maybe the mom wasn't all that bad. Maybe she just put in a very bad situation very quickly. Because even towards the end, she left. Like, she left, and her reasoning was that, oh, I don't want to cause any more trouble for you. Like, that's not something, in another universe, another mom character who was truly bad would have stayed and then, like, reprimanded Hawks and been like, people are coming to my house, what are you doing, blah, blah, basically saying that it's, putting the blame on him, but instead she put the blame on herself. And, you can call that, being a coward maybe, but, even in that moment, I feel like there is some, like, humility in her, and, it was good, But even with that, like, with with how he grew up, you really understand why Hawks was why he was. Why he sort of has these, like, demons in him where he's not always completely sure if he's on the right side and what he's doing is actually the right thing. Because of how he grew up and kind of how he became a hero, like the path that he took. Along with that, just kind of finishing up some of the Hawks stuff. Dabi, who was, not Toya, sort of like unknowingly helped Hawks revive Best Jeanist. Because Hawks sort of put the moves on him, right? He, playing the mind games, where he was like, oh yeah, let's keep him and let's sort of revive him and whatever, right? Sort of like, I don't know, get answers out of him or whatever. If he goes dead now, then that could be problems for us. But truthfully, he was just, it's Best Jeanist. Like, he's a hero just like he is. He wants him to live. But yeah, and so, then we sort of see, like, the second half of the episode where, like I said, we're seeing more and more of the aftermath, right? Like, the Hawk stuff was really cool. Backstories are really cool. But then the second half is more of all of the humans, the quirkless. Not even really the quirkless, I guess, because just because you have a quirk doesn't make you a hero. Not everyone becomes a hero, right? But the distrust of heroes is getting worse and worse. They're now having these things called support items, where it's sort of turning quirkless into quirkful, like, just sort of like, sort of like attachments. I mean, it's like that whole cyberpunk thing where it's like, people get like augmentations, for their limbs and their eyes and whatever. That's sort of what's happening here. And, they're sort of deciding that they're going to take everything into their own hands. Be like, we don't need heroes, because clearly we trusted the heroes. The heroes ain't getting it done. So, like, why don't we try? Maybe we can do a better job. It's not like we can lose worse than them. Like, they've lost. And then real heroes, ones that are even in like the top 10 heroes, are resigning. They're hanging up the cape and the cowl, right? Because they just can't take it. A lot of them just, they can't take the just distrust that has been sowed within just the public eye, and then others feel like they truly have failed, and they're like, I don't deserve to be a hero anymore. I can't do it the way I used to do it. And so, if we're just gonna stop for a second here, this is something I find really fun, because I never thought I never thought that My Hero Academia was gonna go this route, that they were actually gonna have an arc where heroes are not trusted anymore. Because to me, the whole show is kind of set up with heroes, right? Like heroes are a thing. So many people do have quirks. Like, it's honestly weird to not have a quirk. And that is just life, where there's a ton of people with quirks, ton of heroes. That's just like a thing. There's villains, but the heroes always get it done, and I don't know, just with the way the world was set up, I never thought that they would mess around with this idea that, what, heroes, forget them. We don't like heroes. I mean, it's sort of like the Incredibles. If you ever watch the Incredibles, it's a, Disney Pixar film, where the whole premise of that movie, the whole setup of the movie, like within the first like 10 minutes, is that heroes start messing up. And it's not really they start messing up, it's just that people start being a lot more critical of the actions of heroes, because when they first start, it's probably like, oh, whatever, they're heroes, they do stuff, they save us, whatever. But then, time passes and more generations get to see heroes, and it's like, wait, they saved them, but so the whole thing with like, to spoil the beginning of of the Incredibles, where Mr. Incredible saves a man from basically like trying to kill himself. Like just a guy jumping off a building, and he saves him. He like runs off a building, tackles the dude, saves him from not splatting on the ground. He survives, but he does have like a bunch of injuries because like Mr. Incredible, super strong, super big, tackles the dude out of midair. He like like breaks his neck, I think, or something. Well, not breaks his neck, because I feel like if you break someone's neck, they die, right? But like injures his neck and a couple broken limbs and whatever. And so then that guy who was saved from death then sues Mr. Incredible and says like, you like destroyed me, like like physically I'm destroyed. And it's like, I saved your life. And he's like, I didn't want to be saved. And it's like, again, right there, it's a very interesting argument, kind of play both sides. But that's just an example of an analogy I'm trying to make with My Hero Academia, because it is like, for the most part, the heroes are doing everything they can, and so they fail, and so then the public is like, well, they failed, so they're not good enough. And it's like, well, in my mind, I mean, if there was no heroes ever, then you would all be dead most likely, because Shigaraki would have just kept blowing up freaking like what is it, like being, everything would have been disintegrated basically, like he would have just kept going, kept popping them off, so it's like, I don't understand, but it's hard to see, it's hard to see because regular people can't really look at it objectively. They just look at the situation as it is right now in front of their face, and it's not good. So I'm very interested in the rest of the season to see how much more they play with this, because even towards the end, a very large attachment to this is Endeavor, and I love how they're getting deeper and deeper into Endeavor's character. How he starts crying, he has a lot of regret, a lot of guilt. His family catches him crying. It's sort of a funny moment, but then it's also like, ooh, this is tough. And then we see Rei is there, which is the mom, and she's there so everyone there can sit down and talk about Toya. The whole situation, probably what to do, probably try to clear out some demons, kind of make peace with it. And, because right now Endeavor is like, I can't fight my son. And last episode we kind of saw that, and it's like, okay, we understand that Endeavor probably isn't going to be the one to do that. Todoroki or Shoto, because they're all Todoroki, right? Shoto is, will be the one that wants to fight him. That's probably gonna be how it goes, honestly. But yeah, again, this episode is great. It's basically in 3 parts in my mind, right? Where we have the Hawks backstory, which is interesting. I enjoy Hawks' character. We have the unrest, when it comes to heroes, and then we have a little bit of Endeavor at the end. So all 3 parts I was super into the whole time, and I can't wait till next episode, because it's probably just gonna be more unrest, more Endeavor. They'll probably focus a little on Midoriya, I imagine, because we didn't really get any of that this episode. But yeah, I'm having a good time. Let's see. Next, we got Blue Lock, episode 15. This is one where they finished their match. And it's good. It's good. We're building them puzzle pieces. I don't really know what happens next. I mean, theoretically, right? They do a 3-on-3, but I think they're setting up something really interesting. But I'll talk about that at the end. So we have Naruhaya, who is finding Isagi's blind spot off the ball, right? That's kind of his thing. That's something that he's doing very well. And, since they're both the average Joes, it's like, okay, one of them has to up the other one. And, Isagi's feeling a little claustrophobic in that moment because he realizes what Naru is doing. Um, and then you realize that that's also what Rin was doing when Rin was just destroying Isagi, and even had that moment, right? Like we flash back to where he was like, you know, read a book about how human eyes work or something like that. So condescending, but he was right, you know, because, you know, Isagi found out that, oh, there's things you can do off the ball. Like, you don't, like, when you're not in the play, you don't just stand there. You know what I mean? Like there are other things that you can be doing to create opportunities. You know, that's kind of, I mean, in general, that's like soccer, right? Like you have to create opportunities, but but also it's Isagi's thing too. You know, his whole thing, like smelling a goal. Like if he has more tools at his disposal in order to do that, he can put people and himself, right? Because he's also learning to put himself in the position, but just anyone in general that needs to be put in a position to score, then he has a better, you know, he has a better chance of doing so. Um, there's a great line which I didn't realize that he said before to Nagi, but I guess he did because we flashed back to it. But he, you know, he said uh, he told the genius to shut up because he's about to get to the good part, and it's so good because it's that thing with Isagi where, you know, we, you know, at this point 15 episodes in, we know what Isagi's character is, right? It's always, you know, some trials and tribulations and then he finally gets, you know, another skill. You know, he finally learns something, and then that's how he's able to win. um you know, like I said at the beginning of the second selection, him losing and dropping down to 2-on-2, losing Bakura, like that's really what he needed, because in hindsight, he was definitely using Bakura as a crutch. He might not have been doing it purposefully, um, but he was, because that's who he was comfortable with. You know, he needed to learn other things, or else he was never going to get better. He was always just going to be the guy who's like the 1-2 punch with Bakura. But what if Bakura isn't on your team? You know, we've seen that. Um, so yeah, it's great. Then we had a little bit of Naruhaya's you know, backstory, where his family wishes him luck, right? We had really sad, really sad. His parents are dead. He has kind of a big family. They're poor, right? So you know everyone is like has their own little ideas of, you know, when they grow up, how they're going to make money and, you know, support the family, all that stuff. And his thing is soccer, right? He's going to become a soccer star, be rich, support the family. It's all really wholesome. It's a very it's a very classic backstory to a character. um but yeah, you know, we do get a little bit of that. You know, we finally see why he's carrying the pack, whatever it is. I always thought it was like a cigarette pack. I don't actually know what it is. You know, it is like his like good luck charm, right? Then Naruhaya has a very scary moment where he tried to emulate Isagi's direct shot, and it was like, ooh, he almost scored. He almost scored. But him doing that made Isagi realize what he has to do. We had this fun thing where he's like average Joe times average Joe. And, you know, he realizes that, oh, emulation, that's what I have to do. And it's funny because that's something that happens in other sports anime too. But it's like his whole thing where he's like, oh, I'm just going to steal people's skills. You know, like, you know, Naruhaya was like, in only an instant, he was able to take my moves and devour it, you know? And you realize that that is, I feel like, what they are growing Isagi's character into, where it's not just, okay, he's able to create opportunities, direct shot, whatever. Like, that is probably what he's doing more and more, is sort of learning from other characters and sort of stealing their moves, which happens a lot in sports anime, where it's like, oh, he did that thing, I'm gonna do that thing, you know? It worked against me. You know? And then, you know, they win and all that, and, you know, this is just a moment where, you know, I was thinking that all sports anime are the same. Like, if you've seen one sports anime, you've essentially seen every sports anime, but, you know, you want to keep watching them because, it's almost like, you just kind of get that high from sports anime, because no anime like sports, give you that feeling of just like intense and hype. Like certain shonen do, there's certain moments in shonen that do that for you. And there's just general feelings over other anime, like even like drama or romance or something can give, can definitely give you those moments. But sports anime is the one where you just get hype, you're on the edge of your seat, you know what's going to happen most of the time, but you still get hype about it. And there's moments where you don't know and you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And that kind of flips the script a little bit. So, but yeah, of course they won, right? Like that's the thing where were they going to lose? Because if they lost, the only thing that would keep the show going, there's still like 9 episodes left, would be if they picked Isugi, and they probably weren't going to pick Isugi. Um, and then something unexpected happened, because I think I talked about this last episode, because obviously this episode 15, is when they were going to end the match, right? Like there's no way we would have gone into episode 16 still playing this dang match. And so I was thinking, I was like, okay, well, if they win, I think they're going to pick Naruhaya. And my reason behind that was because they were kind of talking about how they need someone who can play off the ball and is a good passer to kind of set both of them up, because neither one of them are super good at setting the other up. Like, Nagi especially, he is very much a receive and do some crazy stuff and then score. Isugi, I feel like that's less true about. We definitely seen moments where he can put other people in the position, but he himself even sort of needs help because he can't really make moves on his own. That's why he needed Bakura, because Bakura can get him in the position to then get someone else in a position. Again, he was using him as a crutch. But they picked Baru, and I didn't see that coming, honestly. In the moment when the match ended and there was some talking, I was like, oh, they're gonna pick Baru. Like I still thought they might have picked Naru, but Baru does make sense. I mean, the reason last episode I didn't think they were going to, because Baru is not a passer. It's just 3 people who don't really create opportunities. So it's like, I don't know how that's gonna work. I think their next match is gonna be really interesting. Especially with Baru. Like I would like to see Baru have some sort of growth as a character and as a player, and maybe try to put other people in a position. I mean, especially like his strength and his accuracy. Like if he just shifted, again, I don't play soccer, so I don't know if these if these skills shift quite as easily as I'm about to describe they do. But if he could just shift that to passing, obviously still score. I mean, he's a monster scorer, but like if he can just shift some of that skill to passing, he could have some crazy, like powerful, accurate passes. Like setting up Isugi's direct shot with that, or even, I mean, probably a lot easier setting up Nagi, because Nagi is super good at controlling the ball. Like that could be like deadly, So I don't know though. And then we have a little thing at the end where Kunigami and Shigiri, they pick Reo as their 3rd member. We're still there. They still haven't played a match yet. Everyone's kind of scared to play their first match, but that is what I said. If you go back a few episodes ago, I guarantee you'll remember me saying, I bet they're going to pick Reo. I bet they're going to pick Reo. It's going to be the little flip, right? Where Isugi and Bakura, instead of teaming up with one of their own, they team up with Nagi. So who are they going to pick? They're going to pick Reo and prove that, hey, you didn't wait for one of us. We were one of your past teammates. You could have waited for one of us, and we could have played with us. So a little bit of chip on their shoulder, That's going to be a crazy team too, by the way. You have Reo's like playmaking, passing. You have Kunigami's crazy shots. And then you have Chiguri's speed off the ball and on the ball. Like, ooh. And what I was kind of mentioning at the beginning of Blue Lock, like 10 minutes ago, whatever, I said that I think they're setting up something crazy, and I think, I could be wrong, they might be setting up these 2 teams to play each other next episode, because, they have to play, right? It's going to be 3-on-3. Like, they just picked their 3rd member, and Isugi, Nagi, and Baru are probably going to now be, walking into that little cluster of trios that Kunigami, Jiguri, and Reo are in right now. Like, they're going to come back and be like, whoa, And there's probably going to be some like, wait, Isagi, didn't you go with Bakura? What happened? It's like, okay, well, here's the thing. We lost. They took Bakura. We won. We took Baru. Here we are. And I bet you they're going to face each other. They're going to want to face each other. Because I feel like, I don't think that's super on the front of Isagi's mind. But I think, as we just saw at the end, like, them keep coming back to Kunigami and Shiguri like this. I feel like that is at the front of their mind, where they're like, we want to beat Isagi's team. Because again, he didn't wait for us. And again, it's not like petty. It's not like, you know, that's not the angle I think they're playing it. It's more so just like, he's trying to get stronger without us, so we're gonna get stronger without him, and then we're gonna face him, and we're gonna prove, hey, you're not, you're not only the one, like we're here too, sort of thing. Again, it's a very classic thing with sports anime. Even though there's people on your team, you don't want to be the worst one on the team. And again, they're not really on a team anymore, but you don't want. I mean, this is a big thing with if you guys have ever seen Kuroko's Basketball, it's obviously a basketball anime. Very, very good. Highly recommend it. But it's that thing where, it starts off where there's a team of 5 people plus a 6th man. So there's 6 people who are on a team together, and they're all really, really, really good, right? And then they all kind of go their separate ways. And, the reason why they did that and they didn't just continue being on a team together is because they wanted to grow without each other. And they also wanted to prove that they were the best member of that team. And so they end up facing each other, and it's all really good. But it's sort of that same sentiment here, I feel like, where it's not like, they don't like hate each other. They're not like out for each other. Like, they don't like hate each other's guts. They don't want to like murder each other when they see, but they do want to prove, hey, I was not the weak link on that previous team. And so I do think that is the angle they're going for here. But yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see. I really hope that is what they set up. Because I don't really know what else they would do to make it interesting, unless they would just introduce another 3 random people. I mean, we have seen other teams, obviously, back when they were Team Z, but I think this 3 out there would be really cool, and this is one they could stretch out over like 2 episodes, and it could be really fun. So yeah. Next, we have The Eminence and Shadow, episode 16. Yeah, we got some good stuff here. This is more of like a middle episode for me, where I think next episode is going to be the one. But yeah, we have some good stuff here, some background stuff. We got Alexia, who really wants to go after Rose. Remember, Rose like murdered her fiance or something, right? And she fled. And so Alexia wants to go after her because, Rose is part of this trio with Alexia, Rose, and Beta. But Beta is like, hey, we should be careful. Because again, Alexia doesn't know who Beta is, because obviously Beta is part of the Shadow Garden, right? With Lord Shadow and all that stuff. So we are very familiar with who Beta is, and how she is definitely like, she's part of this team, and she is kind of putting up a character, to kind of keep Alexia and maybe Rose in check. And again, she Beta's not part of this little trio for the same reason that Alexia is. Beta obviously knows Lord Shadow, knows all this stuff. She has the knowledge, so that is on the surface it makes a lot of sense, where it's like, hey, we can't just like go after her, like that's not gonna work. But under the surface, it's like, well, hold on now. what are we gonna do? How does this affect us? All that stuff. And then we have Beatrix, who might be related to Alpha. That's kind of the flash that we get with Sid. Where Beatrix is like, hey, you smell like an elf. Do you know any elves? I'm looking for an elf. It's what did she say? It's like my sister's daughter or something that I'm looking for. She looks a lot like me, and then we see her face, and it's like a flash to Alpha. It's like, oh, you're the same person, basically. And so Sid, acts like a background character, doesn't really give her anything. Probably gonna investigate that. We'll probably see more of that. Maybe next episode, see who is Beatrix. Maybe talk to Alpha, say, hey, what's going on here? She's looking for you. Do you know why? All that stuff. That's a nice little thread that we're opening up there. Then we have a big fight with Mundane Man and Goldie something. I don't remember. And yeah, it's a pretty cool fight. But it ends the way you think it does, where Mundane, who is Sid, just destroys the man, absolutely wrecks him he dodges a lethal sword swipe by cracking his neck, and then he sneezes to sneeze away the magic dragon and just throw this man into the camera. It's like, all right, he won. And it's funny because we have Anne Rose, I think is her name, and there's also the buff dude. I don't remember his name, but they're kind of having their own little commentary on the side throughout this whole fight. And Anne Rose is like seeing what he's doing but not believing it, and the dude not seeing what he's doing, but the more Anne Rose kind of talks to him about it, he's like, "This isn't true. You're not. This is fake. What you're telling me is not what's happening. There's no way. No one can do this." And at the end, he doesn't really like want to think about it anymore. He's just like, all right, none of this matters. Okay, he's gonna face me, and I'm gonna beat him, and then it's the end of it. We don't talk about this man anymore, this mundane man. And then we have a really cool thing, which is setting up next episode, because I'm pretty sure the next fight is Mundane Man versus Anne Rose. And let me tell you guys, this was a moment that gave me flashbacks, right? So we have them talking. Anne Rose is sort of like, all right, I underestimated you, but I'm still going to beat you. You know what I mean? And then Mundane Man Sid is like, nah, let me warn you. And then he takes off his bracer, he drops it on the ground, and it like pounds into the earth. And he takes his other one off, and that one pounds into the earth too. And Anne Rose is like, what? And he's like, these were holding me back. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, dude. And the reason I got flashbacks because it reminds me of Rock Lee from Naruto. If you don't know, I guess it's a spoiler, but it's like a very low spoiler. So to try not to spoil things, even though this episode is probably like freaking a decade and a half old. There's a character, Rock Lee, who he's like really fast, really strong. In Naruto, there's obviously people who can perform like, they have, I don't know the name of it. I've loved Naruto and I still don't know the name of things. It's just ninjutsu, right? Which is just like, when people use their chakra and they have like powers and whatever. Rock Lee can't do that, right? He's never been good at it. He doesn't really have the capabilities for it, so he just uses taijutsu, which is just basically like hand-to-hand combat, right? He has to get by with that, and so he's really fast, really strong, because that's all he is ever trained in, right? He doesn't care about the other stuff. He just trains his body, so he's really fast, really strong, and then he's killing it, right? And people are like, whoa, he's like the fastest man alive, because none of the kids can match his speed, right? And there's a moment where his mentor is like, yo, it's time. And Rock Lee's like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, it's time. We're like, Rock Lee's in the middle of a fight, right? And Rock Lee's like so hype. And so he takes off his like his ankle weights, right? He takes off his ankle weights. And the other kids are seeing him do this and they're like, so he has ankle weights? Like, whatever. Like, ooh, he was being held back a little bit. Ooh. Like, and then he takes them and he drops them and they hit the ground and they cause like an earthquake. And everyone's like, wait, he was moving that fast with like 2-ton ankle weights on? And then Rock Lee starts really moving and he's like, he cannot be perceived by the human eye. And so, me bringing up that really long-winded tangent is because that's what I thought of when this happened, where it just like pounded into the earth and it's like, whoa, is all of his armor like that? That's insane. Because, we know how dope Sid is, right? He is the Eminence in Shadow. We know how OP his character is, but just for that to happen and just like, wait, you're going to lose. Like even how he was in this moment, I don't think you were going to win. But if he goes like, he's just showing you like, if he went all out, it would end in a millisecond. Like you are not that nice. But yeah. And then, we get a little thing at the end here where Rose is still running away from people. She slices up a dude, but she says, I made sure not to hit your vitals. Go and get that treated, basically. And so that right there, I think is just adding a little bit more to her character, a little bit more to her situation, where it's like, maybe Rose did have a reason for doing what she did. She wasn't just cold-blooded murder, because a psychopath wouldn't make sure to not kill the people who are essentially trying to kill her. So yeah. Next episode, I imagine we're gonna get the Sid or Mundane Man versus Anne Rose fight, which is I hope is gonna be fun. And then probably more about Rose and all that stuff. So yeah, good stuff. Next we got Spy Classroom. Not much to talk about here because I actually am dropping this show. Yeah, I think just after the first couple episodes, I tried to still get into it, and it's just not doing it for me. Like I said, I did have, there was some good stuff about the show. I did like the characters as they were starting to set them up. I just feel like it was too slow. Like we learned more about the teacher than any of them, and it's like, I want to know about the teacher because the teacher has kind of an interesting backstory, but I feel like he's not the main character, so I want to know more about the girls, and we don't know anything about any of them. So that's kind of boring. And then even the little bit we are learning, it's super slow, and it's like, all right, we're already 3 episodes in, like we should have taken care of this already, because now, I feel like it's like cart before the horse type thing. It's like, okay, we're already going on a mission, and it's like, but I don't care about the mission necessarily, like the only attachment we have is like the little bit that we learn about the teacher, but even that, it's like, but what about the other characters? Like, why are they so like it's just hard to care, because like, and then even after that, like, again, this show is, to me, has a lot of similar aspects to, like, like I mentioned another show, Licorice Recoil, and Licorice Recoil was incredible. So I think about this, another show with like girls who are spies, I'm just like, it's not as good. I don't care about the characters at all. It just happened too quick. I also wanted to see more training too. Like I mentioned last episode, I thought the show was going to be mostly training, and the last like 3 episodes or so are going to be like a big mission, but now they're just like, all right, we're in the field now. It's like, oh, but I don't care that you're in the field, I don't care that you're doing this. So fortunately dropping that show, but maybe it'll turn itself around, and it'll be a banger by like episode 5 or 6, and y'all will be like, no, you gotta pick Spy Classroom back up, and I will. I'm okay with admitting I was wrong about a show, but as of right now, I'm not motivated to watch any more of it. So next we got The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten, episode 3. Yeah, great episode. This whole sort of setup for this is that Fujimiya's mom is here, and it's fun. We have Fujimiya's mom is here, and just kind of comes up unannounced, and Sheena's hiding because Sheena's there. And we just had this nice little moment where where the mom finds Sheena there, and she's like, oh, is this your girlfriend? Oh my gosh. And the mom is just relentless. She's backing them into a corner where just, the types of questions, the way she's wording the questions, it's just like, well, you're here. I mean, there's no reason for a boy to be hiding a girl in his room if they weren't together, if they didn't like each other. And it's even like, if you're not together, it's like, oh, you're just not that stage yet. Or, well, I mean, a boy wouldn't let a girl come into his house if he didn't like her, and a girl wouldn't keep coming over a guy's house if she didn't like him. It's like, it's all this logic where it's like, on its own, in a vacuum, all your logic makes complete sense. But you gotta look at the situation where it's like, it's not necessarily, like even Fujimi is like, don't make every like opposite sex relationship has to be romantic, it can just be friends, right? And then the mom and Sheena exchange contact information. It's really funny, just, because the mom is super like, she is like all encompassing, right? She's like, hey Sheena, come here. Why don't we change exchange? And it's just like, okay, Sheena's getting overwhelmed. Like I said, it is a nice moment because she just tells it like it is. she's more objective to the situation, where Fujimiya and Sheena are very much like tiptoeing around each other. Because again, like, we're here, guys. Like, we're watching these episodes together. We're on episode 3. Like, we know what's gonna happen. Like, we know for a fact. Unless they pull some crazy twist on us, like, these two are gonna get together. Like, they're going to be a couple. But right now they're not really playing it that way. They're like, oh no, we're just kind of friends. We like each other, like hanging out, all that stuff. But we know what it is. And then we have some more stuff where, Sheena's like, my parents would never call me by my first name, because the mom does. The mom wants to call her by her first name, Mahiru. And she's like, oh, my parents would never. And so again, we're getting like little like drip fed this like backstory of Mahiru. And we saw now with the whole my parents thing before, where she's like, oh, I have to study, I have to do well. It's like, okay, what do we, I did make some predictions when we talked about that, where it's like, oh, it's probably her parents, there's probably something about her family, right? It's usually what it is. It's usually for a loved one. Either a loved one isn't doing well, so she wants to do good and make money, be successful, she can support her family. Or maybe it's like to go against her family, to be like, oh, the family isn't very supportive, so she is kind of on her own, so she does have to do as well as she can in her studies, so she can be successful and be like an independent person, because her family sucks, right? So it's usually one or the other, something like that. And so I think with this, it's like, it is sort of edging on the latter, where it is like, ooh, my parents would never call me by my first name. It's like, that's a strange thing for parents to not do. Like, so what do they call you then? Like, they can't call you by your last name, because that's everyone in the house is your last name. There's even the thing where when Mahiru was saying Fujimiya, the mom was like, well, that could be either one of us. Both of us are Fujimiya. Who are you talking about? And then she like pressured Mahiru into saying Amane. And it's like, yeah, but that's very sad. And then Amane is like Mahiru. And it's like, oh, you did it. You call me by my first name. And, and then she calls him Amane, and it's like, don't get too comfortable. But, it is just like a nice little, a small step in the relationship, where it's like, come on, guys. Come on. What do we think is happening here? We really sitting here watching this show, and it's like, this is not what's gonna happen. And even Amane like lends Mahiru his key, and is like, oh, it's a pain to have to go to the door every time. And then we have a nice little scene where Amane wants to try to cook. His cooking is not great. It's fine, it's not like another anime where someone tries to cook and it's like, I think I'm gonna be sick. It's like, no, it's not good. There's a lot of things that you didn't really pay attention to. So that was a nice little thing too, where it's like, oh, Mahiru usually cooks, but I want to try and do it. And then we have sort of the end, where Amane is convinced to have a small Christmas party on Christmas Eve, with Chitose and Itsuki, just like his friend and his girlfriend, which I guess is sort of his friend too. And they have a little Christmas party. It's like, oh, you have your place, you're alone, I mean, not like that, but like, you're all by yourself, and, we want to come over, kind of have, a little party, what I'm saying? A little get together. And then Mahiru, we have a nice little scene where, Mahiru, or I guess, Chitose is kind of like egging Amane on about the neighbor, right? About this, this neighbor that he's like, hanging out with, doing good stuff for, and that kind of gets it in his head. And so we have a scene where Amane does kind of bring it up to Mahiru. It's like, hey, do you have Christmas plans? She's like, nah. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And she's like, well, since you ask, I'm assuming you have plans. Like, why? Why else would you bring it up? It's just a weird thing to bring up. And she's like, yeah, I'm sort of having, Itsuki, a friend come over with his girlfriend, Chitose, whatever. And he's like, oh, cool. she's like, okay, cool, just let me know when you're done. I'll come over after that, or maybe then, whatever, next day, whatever, right? I'm not gonna get in your way. And then Amane's like, oh, cool, cool, all right, cool, and he sort of backs off, which, I thought he was gonna invite her to come over as well. I was like, do it, invite her to come over, same day, have them all together, but it doesn't happen. And then he does something I think maybe even a little better in some ways, and he's like, hey, actually, do you want to hang out on Christmas? I don't want to be presumptuous, because in Japan, Christmas is not quite like it is in America, where Christmas is more of like a like couple, more of like a romantic holiday. It's sort of more of what it's seen as, and less of just like a family holiday with like presents and whatever. um and she's like, yeah, dude. Yeah, let's do it. And it's just nice because, yeah, it is Christmas, a romantic holiday, but it is like, oh, they get to hang out, they're hanging out. She's not doing anything. She's alone, right? And she's like, oh, I'm just going to play, let's just try that thing. She points to the very clearly a Nintendo Switch, and is like, oh, yeah, let's play some video game. I never played games before. Let's do it. Let's just hang out. And so that's a nice moment where you can tell like they're super looking forward to that. And then we have the end. We're at the end, boys, and they're together, right? We have Amane with Chitose and Itsuki at their place. We start getting him thinking about certain things, right? About Mahiru and all that. And then it's snowing. Chitose and Itsuki go outside, and they're like, wait, hold on. And they look next door, and who is also outside on their little balcony thing, enjoying the snow? Mahiru. And ooh boy, that's how it ends. And I can't wait for next episode, because let me tell you, there's gonna be some questions. There's gonna be some dots that are being connected. And first off, just like the shock that the angel is Amane's next door neighbor. That's gonna be a shock for Chitose and Itsuki. But then on top of that, it's like, wait, Amane is talking about his neighbor, how he hangs out with his neighbor. He bought a little stuffed teddy bear for his neighbor. The angel must be the neighbor. Like, this must be, oh my god. The whole time we were thinking that Amane really doesn't care about the angel at school, doesn't really talk about it, doesn't, whatever. It turns out he's doing more than anyone. So there's gonna be some things connected and everything. I mean, I think it's gonna be very very uncomfortable for them at first, but I think that this is going to be what I thought Amane was going to do at the beginning, where I said, I thought he was going to invite her over. And now I think, Chitose especially is going to be super like outgoing and be like, oh, come over, come on, let's do it. Like, let's go. And I think now the whole episode is going to be that, where they're put in this situation, and it's going to be awkward, but I think it's going to be really fun. And, another very classic, like, rom-com type, plot situation, I guess, right? But yeah, still loving the show. I don't think this is, kind of looking at things, I don't really think this is a show that's getting too much attention. And I understand why. I don't think the show is doing anything like super innovative or anything like that, but it's just nice. I don't think it's doing anything wrong either. I think it's very middle of the ground, just like, it's fun. It's a setup with two characters that don't like each other, but they clearly do. There's not too many characters to kind of get in the way of things. It is doing a really, because like there are other rom-coms that I've seen where there are two characters that are incredible, but they need the side characters to kind of flesh out the show. But I feel like this show doesn't super need that, because the show isn't really trying to flesh out and have like a whole story almost. It is just kind of like these nice little moments between Amane and Mahiru. And that's all really the show is trying to be. If the show is trying to be anything more than that, I think it would need really strong side characters. Like, for me, one of the best rom-coms, possibly the best rom-com ever, is Love is War, yeah. The whole Love is War show. If you haven't seen that and you like rom-com type shows, it kind of leans more heavier on the I'll say, but it's definitely rom-com. Very, very, very good. This was a show where I watched the first season and I was like, yeah, all right, it's cool, it's fun, you know. I mean, I don't really get the hype around it, but then the more I watched it, I was just like, oh no, this is like a masterpiece rom com. Like this is um, top tier rom com action. But yeah, that that's another show where it has two strong characters that the show is based around, but it's not just like fun little moments. Like it is trying to be more. It is trying to like interconnect all these things, and so it needs strong supporting characters, and it has them. You know, like it does everything right. So yeah, go watch that. But yeah, that's that. Next show, The Ice Guy and His Cool Female Colleague, episode 3. Um, Fun show. This is very similar to me as The Angel Next Door Smells Me Rotten, because it's just like it's not doing anything that's like super groundbreaking, but it's not doing anything wrong either, in my opinion. It's just a fun show. It's just some nice times, right? So we have them getting relocated, right? Because up to this point they were just like temporary work, but now it's like more like permanent work, I guess. And it's great because Himuro and Fuyutsuki are sweating. They were sweating. They're like, oh man, are we not going to be with them anymore? Like we're going to be in different departments. It's going to be so tough. And then the moment where we scroll through the email and we see they're in the same department, and it's like, oof, like watching the show, it's like, of course they're gonna be in the same department. Like, what would the show be if they weren't? But for a second, you're still on the edge of your seat of like, but what if they're not? What if they're separated? You know. Um, and they even sit next to each other too. They're not only in the same department, but they sit next to each other. That's like they're like assigned seating or whatever. Um, but yeah, and so this episode really turns up the whole romance aspect between them. The first couple episodes, it's like okay, they're having fun, they're hanging out, whatever. But this one is more of a turning point where they are. I don't really think they're a couple yet necessarily, but they are getting there. They are actually on the ways. They are making moves, right? So we have a funny piece of information here where Fuyutsuki just likes all food. Like she's not picky. There's really nothing she doesn't like. She's like, oh yeah, whatever. Everything's good. I've ever since I was a kid, I've never really been a picky eater. Like I'll eat whatever. And so Himuru is kind of latching onto this because he needs to know. He's like, because he wants to invite her to dinner. And we have a funny scene where he's like, where they're sitting at a desk, and he's like, hey Fuyutsuki, and then he just names so many different types of food, like Chinese, Korean, I don't know, Italian, uh, whatever, right? Just names like 12 different like types of food, based on like location, and he's like, out of all these, which one would you say you like the most, or whatever, and she just like, like at first she's like, oh, like in her head you can sort of see she has a reaction of like, that's a very weird and sudden question, but let me think. And she's like, I like them all. It's just like, that's not helpful. That's not helpful in the least. Like it's good you like them all. It's good that at least if I were to pick some place, you wouldn't be upset with any place I pick. Because like for me, I wouldn't say that I'm particularly picky. I'm a particularly picky eater. Like I would say for the most part, like I could probably eat most stuff. I mean, I personally I couldn't have like super spicy stuff, and then like seafood. I'm not big on seafood. I think there's situations in which I can enjoy seafood, but if you're just if like how you would eat like a steak dinner where it's like the steak is the main thing. They have some vegetables, maybe some mashed potatoes or something. If you did that but with fish, and it was like okay, fish is the main thing. I don't think I could do that, but if you incorporate it into something, maybe I could do that. But I think for the most part, I'm not like super picky eater. Uh, you know, I'm probably somewhere in the middle where it's like I'm not super picky, but I absolutely can't eat just anything. I wish I could. That'd be awesome. It's it's like the one like normal just like human thing that I wish I could change. It's like I wish there's like any food. My brain would just be like, yep, that is okay to eat. But yeah, and then then Himuru does actually ask her to dinner, which is great. It's a very nice moment there. And then they are eating. Well, first they're walking to the place, and they're just like walking in silence, and it's just like, you should like talk. Like, why are you walking in silence? And then they're eating, and they're eating in silence, and it's like, what do we do? Like, forget the fact that this is supposed to be like a date, right? Where it's like supposed to be romantic. You're supposed to be like trying to get to know each other, whatever. Put that aside. Two people eating in silence is weird. Like, I get you maybe not talking, like, especially when your food comes, right? Like, when your food comes, I feel like the talking aspect of like going out with someone or multiple people to dinner kind of dials down, because it's like, okay, well, there's food, like I'm gonna eat my food, like I'm not an animal. I don't talk with food in my mouth. So I'm not, we're probably not going to talk as much as we were when we were waiting for the food. We're still going to talk, we're still going to eat and then talk, and then that, as you do. But it's just silence, like no one's saying anything. I'm just like, someone has to say something, someone has to open up a conversation, like even just small talk, or like, talk to people about like yourself or each other, like something. It's like I was getting like secondhand like awkwardness. um and then that's pretty much how it goes. And then Fuyutsuki, and then because of this, they're both super self-conscious of like, oh no, the other one isn't having a good time. Why aren't they saying anything? And then even like to both themselves, they're like, why aren't they saying anything? But at the same time, they're like, but I kind of get it because I'm not saying anything either. So it's like they're super self-aware of themselves, but they're still like, oh man, I wish they would say something. And that's kind of how it goes until like Fuyutsuki goes to get like, just has like a phone call, and then Himuro's talking to the waiter. He's like, oh yeah, it's super nice. Like, yeah, I actually am on a date. Thanks for asking. And I'm just having a great day. It's just today's a great day. And then we see that Fuyutsuki kind of came back during the middle of that and like heard him say that, and so he's like super embarrassed. Well, they're both kind of embarrassed, but and then Himuru, apparently when he's embarrassed, he melts. Sort of the same way he does when it's super hot out, right? That we saw last episode, and yeah. And that was just a really cute moment too, because that was like the one time where they really, someone let off some emotion of like what they're thinking, and you can tell that they both felt that way. And then just for him to like melt at the end was like, that's cute. But yeah, that whole thing is really nice because, again, it's the next step in their relationship. I feel like the show was set up with that going to happen. Like, again, they're gonna get together, like it's gonna happen. But the first couple episodes, they're just kind of hanging out, sort of testing the waters. And this episode, I feel like, was like a next step where it's like, okay, they went on a date. They're, this kind of changes things for the better. And then, yeah, and then we just kind of keep going, where it's like we hear Fuyutsuki say that her and Himuro are not close, and that sort of hits him a little bit. But then you realize why she's saying that. She's not saying it because she doesn't like him. She's saying it because objectively they're not close. They don't really know anything about each other. Like, they're nice to each other. They like to like hanging out, but they don't know anything about each other. And she does tell her colleague that she does like him a great deal. That's like, oh, it's so good for Himuro to hear that. Because that's just generally, I feel like, with anyone, right? Like, not even romantically, just like as friends. Like, you know how you feel about someone else, but you don't actually know how someone feels about you. So it's definitely a nice thing for him to hear that. It's like when Fuyutsuki doesn't know that he's listening, she's talking about him in that light. It's like, oh yes, security. you know And then Himuro and Fuyutsuki exchange phone numbers, which is, it's so good. It's another step where it's like, even friends would have each other's phone numbers, but just the fact that you have it, it's like, yes, it's good. It's just, it's just some groundwork that needs to be laid. And then we have a cute moment where Himuro is just so happy that like he accidentally freezes his phone. He's like, no, because then he can't respond because he can't click the screen through the sheet of ice that is covering his phone. And he's like, no. So that's that's a nice moment. And and then we see Fuyutsuki's phone, and her lock screen is the fireworks picture, which is really nice. You know, that's a it's a nice win for Himuro, because he feels like, oh, she did have a good time when we were hanging out that day. Because she made the picture of her lock screen, and so Fuyutsuki is like, yeah, and then he walks away, and she's like, oh, thank God. I mean, I'm so glad he didn't see, because my lock screen is the fireworks picture, but my home screen is the picture I took when he was melted. And then it was like him as a kid. It's like, oh, I'm so glad he didn't see that. And then Himuro walks back, and she like freaks out. She like she like puts his phone, or puts her phone on the desk, and and it's like, you did it. you, you got the screen, you got the picture. So it's just like, again, it's just, this show is sort of similar to the last show, where it's like, it is just a bunch of like cute little moments, and stuff is building, and it's just a fun ride for the most part. Like, there's no real, I'm not really here for the crazy deep storytelling, and like, I don't know that this show will ever hit me super hard emotionally, but I don't think it has to. As long as it's just fun and it keeps doing what it's doing, solid. Solid. Next, we have The Magical Revolution of the Reincarnated Princess and the Genius Young Lady, episode 3. Yeah, this was a hard episode. There's a couple things that happen where it's like, kind of on the edge of your seat, but I think we're now getting to that point where it's like, okay, we see what this show is. We see what's happening here. So we have the beginning, where Ilya is here for Euphilia, right? Like, she's there, she's helping her out with everything, and so we just see how good of a person, not only how good of like a maid Ilya is, but also how just good of a person she is, and also how good she is at her job. So that's nice to see. We have Anisphia, who triggered her own alarm for like intruders. It's like, which is ironic, because now she's the intruder. So that was good. And then also on top of that, with Ilya, just like, yep, this is something she did, and I just hit this button and it's off. Like, how seasoned she is at dealing with Anisfia's nonsense. Then we have her Anisphia having Euphilia test out some tools. We have the Mana Blade that we've seen her use before. And it's just really cool because, Euphilia actually can channel magic. So the Mana Blade is like crazy strong with her. And then we have her test out the broom, and she flies the broom, so that was really cool. And she seems like she's having fun. And it's like, oh, this is cool. So, it's something she doesn't quite understand, but Euphilia's having fun doing this, I think. And then we have a moment where she like crashes the broom, and you can tell that she's upset, because Anisphia was supposed to hang on and all that stuff. And Anisfia's like super apologizing to her. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, blah, blah, And then Euphilia starts laughing. And, you're just kind of laughing at like kind of the whole situation, I guess, but then also Anisphia's reaction to it. And then she immediately apologizes for laughing, and she's like, oh no, I shouldn't have laughed, you're a princess, like, that's it's not very polite of me, all that stuff. And Anisphia's just like, you don't have to do that, like, you don't like we're allowed to have fun, and I love that moment, because I think that's so indicative of the direction of the relationship, because Anisphia is sort of used to this. Like, she knows she's a princess, she knows how people act around her, but she just wants to have fun, and like, she is super into this whole magicology thing, that this is just what she does, and then we have the flip side of Euphilia, where she was kind of brought into this family, gonna marry Algard, right? And so she was sort of being put in this position of being royalty, being like the next queen, basically. And so she has that kind of like posture, both physically and verbally. And now she's not that anymore, but she's still kind of, she's still in the family. She still like has that like mentality with things. And so it is that thing where they are sort of like clashing. But I think it's for the better. This sort of thing needs to happen. And then we have Euphilia having this great line where she talks to Ilya, and this whole thing was like, oh, what do you think of Anisphia? It's crazy that someone is able to tolerate her, all that stuff. Sort of tongue in cheek, but also sort of serious on Ilya's end. And then even Euphyllia is like, well, I wouldn't say I necessarily favor her. I don't like dislike her. Like, I sort of just don't understand her. And then she says, she's just so far from me. And I love that line because it's sort of similar to the situation that we were just in, where she was, apologized for laughing, where it's like, Anisfia is so different, and like Anisfia is so different from anybody, but it really hits her, and it's true for her because you can tell that Euphyllia likes Anisfia. I think deep down. Now I'm not saying like romantically. I'm not saying that deep down, she wants to marry her. Like no, again with the way the show is going, I'm sure we'll get there. But I think there is sort of a feeling inside of her where she's intrigued, and everything she's done with Anisfia so far is so different than how she's lived her life that it is intriguing and it is exciting a little bit. Like even when she was using the mana blade, it was like, oh, this is interesting. She was riding the broom, like she was smiling. She's like, oh, this is so cool, And then, even, the moment where she has a lapse in judgment and she laughs, it's like she was enjoying herself, but it is that thing where it's like, she is so far from me. Like what she is not what I am. And like, I don't know how that's going to work out, basically. That's kind of how I took it. Where like, again, not even romantically, not even like, the weird romantic stuff that, especially, more so on Anisfia's end, but clearly how the show is going to go. Like, again, if you watch anime, how the show is going to go, at least between the relationship and the dynamic between these two characters. But yeah, that's basically how I took it. And then we have a moment where there's, they're talking about, Elgard now, she's not with him anymore. And so like, what is Euphyllia to expect? And basically there's a sentiment that Euphyllia has done more than enough for this family. And I think, the king or whatever is talking to, I think his son. I think that's who it is. It's his son, maybe it's like his youngest son or something. I don't really know exactly, but the intention behind that, I think, wasn't malicious. It was more so just like, oh, like you've done more than enough. Like you don't have to worry about this. Like don't feel guilty. Don't like, I feel like they were more so trying to reassure her and sort of be like, you're free, quote unquote, where it's like, hey, like don't feel tied to us anymore. Like you don't have obligations. Like you can live your life now. But the way it came out was more so was sort of just like, get out of here, and I don't think that's how either of them intended it to sort of come out as, but I think that is how Euphyllia sort of took it, where it is like, you've done more than enough, you don't have to do this anymore, like blah blah blah, whatever. And I think it does hurt her a little bit because even before Anisfia, I feel like this was her purpose, like this is what she was growing up to be, and now what does she do with her life? You can do anything. It's like, because even like the maids sort of say that to her, where it's like, you're free now, you can do whatever you want. And Euphyllia laughs, but not laughs. Euphyllia smiles, but she doesn't smile with her eyes. Her eyes are very sad, and it is that thing where it's like, cool, I can do whatever I want, but that doesn't help. Like you can live your life. It's like, yeah, but this is kind of all I knew. This is sort of what I was doing with my life. And now that it's been ripped out from under me, it's shocking, So, and then Anisfia lost sleep finishing Euphyllia's special magic tool, which is really funny. She's like, oh, I got 4 hours of sleep, 2 hours of sleep, maybe 1 hour of sleep. It's so good. And she has this like, it's like saber basically. And, Euphyllia's super like shocked. She's like, what do you have, a special tool? What do you mean? And she uses it, and it's really cool. Like, it's really cool. It can like channel different like elements, basically, like fire and like electricity and water and all that stuff. It's just really, really cool. And you can tell that Euphyllia loves it. And Anisfia even has this line where she, oh, excuse me, that was weird. Anisfia even has this line where she says that Yuffie's magic is so beautiful. And it's like, all right, guys, what do we, Anisfia's magic is beautiful. Or Yuffie, sorry. Yuffie's magic is beautiful. Yuffie, Yuffie's also maybe a little beautiful too. So I mean, again, it's just like, it's so clearly that's what's happening here. But you know, it is nice because I mean, she also does like magic, right? Like, you know, the whole like isekai thing was something that I didn't really understand at first. The whole reincarnated princess. It's like, oh, the you know the princess was reincarnated. You know, like Anisfia was not Anisfia the whole time. Like she did have a previous life. This is an isekai. It's just a very subtle isekai. Um, honestly, if that's it, honestly, like this being an isekai, one of the best isekais I've seen in a while. Um, but yeah, again, that whole dynamic, and then even the whole like rainbow scene where she's like, oh, I like the Japanese name or whatever. It's like, oh, it means rainbow, you know, because I feel like, you know, you remind me, you're beautiful as a rainbow, you know. It's like, oh man, hits you so hard. It's like, oh, this is what's happening. We're here, we're doing it, you know. So yeah, super nice there. And yeah, I just love this show. It's great. You know, not like the dynamic between these two characters, Anisfia and Euphelia, is just so perfect, and they're rubbing off on each other, and just you know this whole like magicology thing. Like, I just can't wait to see more of it. You know, I just can't wait to see more of them together doing stuff. You know, the whole like, oh, Euphelia's just gonna go and say thank you to everyone and then leave and get out of here. It's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're definitely not leaving. There's no way. So we'll see what happens though. You know, we'll see. Next, we have Buddy Daddies episode 3. The episode where we all knew it was going to happen, but we loved it anyway. Let's see. A moment I really liked was Ray liking Miri's cereal. And that sort of goes through a bunch of different times where, you know, Kazuki just kind of feeds Miri something that she wants and she loves it. And then Ray loves it too. And it's like, you two are useless, you know? Because, like, you know, Kazuki loves cooking. So the fact that Ray and Miri love cereal, like they're in love with cereal, and at the end they're in love with store-bought food. It's like you guys just don't appreciate the culinary arts. You know, it's very funny. You start to realize that Ray and Kazuki don't really talk about their personal lives to each other, which I think is gonna change as the show goes on. I think that Miri will be the catalyst for that. But you know, just the fact that it's like, oh, your parents sound horrible, you know, and he was like, oh, don't ask me about him or whatever, and he's like, oh, I wasn't going to. He's like, oh, well, I wouldn't tell, you know. It's just like, you know, they have their own lives and they're like partners, but they don't really know anything about each other too much, you know, unless they were to have some, you know, stuff slip. It's sad, you know, but I really do hope that, you know, Miri changes that and they do become more of a family that knows everything about each other, you know. We have a moment where you know, it's basically CPS almost got them. It's like, hey kid, where are you? You're alone? And he's like, no, my dad's over there. And he's like, hey sir, are you her father? He's like, no. And Mary's like, what? And then the worst thing happens. Kazuki comes over. He's like, oh yeah, that's my daughter. He's like, right. And he's like, is that true? Is that true, miss? Is this you know, is this your dad? And she doesn't say anything. It's like, why aren't you saying anything? And and she's like, you told me not to call you Papa in public. Just like, no, not now. Now is the only situation where you should call me. You know, so that was a nice moment there. We have another nice moment where Miri really wanted Ray to smile. Ray's like, I don't smile. Again, it's nice there because again we're learning more about Ray's character. You know, the whole like dad thing, the relationship he has with his dad, which I think really makes a lot of sense. It answers a lot of questions, and you know, just Miri being super innocent, just like smile, smile, smile. You know, again, Miri being the catalyst for them both having better lives. You know, them both understanding more of who they are and learning to love. And then we have the moments where Kazuki meets Miri's mom. He just decks the mom's man because the boyfriend was terrible person. You know what I mean? You shouldn't hit people in general. Hitting a woman, not okay. Especially for just a stupid thing like that. Like, I told you no customers. Like, what do you just walked in. You have no idea who I am, why I'm here, if she even knows who I am. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Very insecure, a very insecure person. Um, on the flip side, at the same time, we have Ray and Miri having a little adventure where they are playing together, and you see Ray is very uncomfortable, but it's a nice moment because he's trying. He definitely likes Miri, and he's trying, and then we go back to Kazuki and the mom, and we see that the mom just sucks, right? Like, I went into this episode. I I think I talked about this last episode, or maybe I didn't, and I just talking to it to myself. But about how in my mind there was one of two possibilities where the mom was gonna be dead or something, or like she was gonna be like an alcoholic, or something very clear about her. Just just from Kazuki looking at her, that he was gonna be like, nope, can't bring her there, or the mom was gonna like reject him, right? Because there's no situation in which the mom is like a super good mom and it's like, oh yeah, thank you, bringing her back. But oh, the dad's dead. All right, well I can, we'll take care of him then. Like that just wasn't gonna be the show, right? And it was the latter. It was the latter where the mom is just like, I wish I never had her. She ruined my life. Every time she would smile or laugh, I just wanted to hit her. Just like, what is happening? It's just like, I get it. Like as I was watching it, like there was part of me that wanted to play devil's advocate and be like, okay, I have to assume that having a child when you do not want to have a child has got to be really tough, right? Really tough. But I feel like at that point, it's like you're already in. Like you had, I don't know. Like the whole thing where it's like you had so much time to think about if you wanted a kid or not, and then it's like, oh well, no, because I thought that he was gonna be with me, he was gonna help me, and then he left me, and it's like, could you not see that? Like, I don't know, I feel like the whole like these domestic relationships, all that stuff, it's like, I don't know, it's tough. I don't know, it's a tough situation. At the end of the day, she still sucks. Like, at the end of the day, you are supposed to take care. If not, give it to an orphanage. Like, again, I don't know how Japan works. I feel like Japan has to have orphanages, like at some point, like bring it to someone, or CPS, and be like, I'm not fit to take care of this child. Like, again, putting your kid in the system, not great, but if you're not going to take care of the kid, I guess it's better. With like Kazuki's logic, where he's like, hey, it's better than nothing, and it's like, well, she feels that way too. um so yeah, she's just terrible. She's awful. you know So, Miri belongs with them because it's like, oh, well, they're spies. We can't really. It's like, no, you're taking care of her 100 times better than what the mom is doing. And then we have Papa Ray saving Miri. We have a nice moment there. Very awkward moment because, eventually I understand why the moment exists because it's like, oh, I'm Papa Ray. Come, Miri. We're going to go home. I understand why the moment is impactful for both of them. But, like, to the cops, when 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 Ray comes in and is like, hey, unhand her. And they're like, oh, are you this kid's guardian? And he says no. And they're like, oh, is this like a friend's kid or something, And he's like, no. And they just look at each other of like, I don't understand what to do now. And she's like, and then he gets down, he's like, I'm her papa. And it's just like, again, from like this being an anime, great moment. But like in real life, if you were to walk up and like, if you are this kid's father, why are you playing 20 questions with us? Come up to us and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like that's like, I'm her dad. Is there something going on here? And they'd be like, oh, no, sorry. We thought she was, she was a missing kid. Oh, here you go. Here you go. It's just like, if you were really her father, you would not be playing 20 questions with us. Like, are you her dad? Are you her uncle? Are you a friend? You know what I mean? Like, you would have came up and been like, hey, I'm her dad. What's going on here? So yeah, it was just a very weird moment. And then they are going home to get dinner. Dinner for three? Dinner for three. It's like, yes, we're doing it. So yeah, again, like this is a moment where we all knew this was going to happen. Like there was no way Miri was going to be leaving their side, but it's still nice that it happened, and meeting the mom and the situation she's in, it just further reinforces that they need to take care of her. You know, like I guess worst case scenario, they were to like give her up, you know, again to like be an orphan basically, but like or like you know in the system, CPS, all that stuff, but like they should take care of her. They should do it. So yeah, I can't wait to see you know next. I mean, because now the episodes are kind of blown wide open. Because up until this point, it's like, oh, we're not gonna keep her though. We gotta find out where she is, the mom, family, all that stuff. Now it's like, she's ours. So now the show is fully wide open to just be shenanigans, and I am here for it. Next, we got Revengers or Revenger episode 3. We still have so many shows to go, guys. We're not done. This is gonna be a long episode. Revenger episode 3. We have the shop owner who had opium in a statue. Not good because there's the whole opium thing that's going on right now. A lot of schemes, a lot of ooh. But then we find out that you know he was framed, and I don't remember the kid's name is like Neo or something. The little girl's name. She has a nice little back and forth with Kuruma, who because Kuruma's like, oh well, samurai wouldn't act that way. You know, they got to be honorable. You know, blah blah. You know, and you know they wouldn't force them to do something like that. You know, frame them and take the money, whatever. You know, and then the girl's like, oh, I mean, the way I see it, they're actually pretty good. They're actually pretty lucky. You know, because like, you know, at least if you pay them off, they leave you alone. I would argue that killing your dad or your mom's fiance or whatever just off the orders is way worse. And then Kuruma realizes that, oh, she's talking about him. And then you know that really hits him because that's what all of them are kind of hitting him for, is that, you know, he's just this like bloodthirsty, like whatever, he's just a, you know, mercenary for hire basically. He doesn't think about things, he just does them. He's a bad person basically. But then it really hits him because he doesn't feel that way. You know, he was tricked, and people say that's not an excuse, but in his mind it is. I mean, maybe it's not, but in his mind that is the explanation, not an excuse, but it is. He's explaining what happened, and it's really tough for him. You know, it is kind of this internal struggle in his mind, something he's probably never gonna forget. He might not even ever forgive himself for it. But you know, Soji doesn't like rooming with Kuruma, but he kind of sucks anyway. I mean, you know, I feel like as the show goes on, he's gonna be more endearing, and we're gonna like his character. But he's just like an alcoholic, you know. He's also a gambling holic. You know, he hasn't paid rent in months, and so they're like, hey, who takes care of your rent? Me. You're gonna room with Kuruma. There's no room left. He's gonna be with you, whatever, right? They have nope. There's the pajama police. I don't remember the dude's name, so I'm just gonna call it pajama police. They're basically busting people for the opium that they are selling. So it's like, man, you're selling opium to people and then busting them for having opium. Ooh, that is quite the cycle. That's not cool, man. You know? But you know, that is corruption. You know, there's a very classic like police corruption story arc. So I'm sure we'll see more of that. You know, I'm sure we'll see more of the whole pajama police thing, and you know, because I feel like at the end of the day, Usui, right, that's his name, Usui. He is trying to like crack all of this, right? So I'm sure we'll see more of it. And then at the very end, we have a little duel between Soji and Kuruma, where it's like, hey, 5 people, whoever gets more kills gets to keep the room. And you know, it's a nice little fight. You know, Kuruma shows a side of himself that Soji didn't see before, where he can be stealthy, takes out 2 people right off the bat. They're tied 2-2, and then Soji takes the last one, right? Kuruma sort of, I feel like, lets him take the last one because he's ready, got his hand over the sword, and then he sees a shadow which he assumes is Soji, and he sort of like puts his hand down, and then Soji kills the man. So I feel like Kuruma let him get that kill. Soji wins. He's like, it's my room, pack up your stuff. And then Kuruma almost stabs Soji, but is really stabbing a hidden 6th man. And so they're tied, right? And this is one of those moments where, again, for the most of the episode, it's like, Soji kind of sucks. But then you see he is honorable. He's like, we tied, we got to keep the room. A bet's a bet. Like, we can't go back on it. All that stuff. So it's like, okay. And then, I think Kurima's even like, I don't know if it's in that moment or previously, but he's like, you're sometimes more of a samurai than I am. And he's like, don't lump me in with you. I'm nothing like you. But it is like, okay, he does have honor. He does stick to his word. So that's nice. Again, we have Revenger. Revenger is one of those shows where I'm still intrigued. I'm not like all the way in. I do like the whole samurai aspect to it. I do want them to keep going though, because there are little pieces that I feel like aren't being super connected yet, but I think as the show goes on, it's going to connect them more, and I'm going to like the show a lot more. Right now, I'm just like, it's good. And, it's definitely good enough for me to keep watching, but sometimes it feels a little random, a little scattered. So, I hope as the episodes go on, I mean, maybe even next episode, stuff kind of starts connecting more and more. That would be nice. Next, we got Giant Beast of Ours, episode 3. So they found some animal people, little village here. That was pretty cool. I wrote a note here that Jiro's pretty humble. I don't think humble is quite the right word, but he doesn't really brag, which I guess is humble. But like, he doesn't brag, but he also doesn't really like get like, he's not super harsh with other people, So like, he is powerful. He's very strong, but like he doesn't really brag about it. He's like, oh yeah, whatever. Like I just live my life, right? But then also, if other people fail, he's not like, well, you should have took me. I would have taken care of it. Like when like one of the main warrior dudes like comes back and he's like defeated and he's like, you probably think I'm a joke or something like that, right? And Jiro's like, no, I don't think that. What are you talking about? Like he's very humble in that aspect too, where again, he just like dunk. He just dunk on other people. He's more so just like, oh yeah, like you need help, I got you. Like, oh, I mean, we're here, we're doing it. Like, why wouldn't we, right? Which I do really like about his character. The thing that got them is this like red-eyed tentacle elephant beast, very strong, very menacing. Although Jiro and Kumi just wreck this beast like instantly. Like they're fighting, and they need to save the people that aren't capable, and so like, all right, let's do it. Let's merge, and they get him. And then we have the end where Milan is in their debt, because they basically saved him. They saved him from possible death. So I guess they're still back at the village now, and they're waiting out the flood because it's like a huge flood. They can't cross it. So I guess they're waiting that out now. So yeah, that was basically the episode. Pretty quick. This is the show I mentioned at the top of the podcast. That there's one show that I'm sort of on the edge about, and I think that's Giant Beast of Ours. Revenger for me is probably the next closest, although Revenger I don't really see myself dropping. I think at the very least, like the pieces to the story of Revenger and just like the cool samurai stuff is enough for me to probably keep watching it for the whole season. Giant Beast of Ours, I'm really giving like one last chance. I feel like the setup was neat, but I don't super care about the characters enough. The world is cool with the beasts, but even that, like, it's not giving me enough there. And like my main issue is that I don't need another show that's just like, here's a group of people going on an adventure. Like I don't need that, so the comparison I make is there's a show called To Your Eternity, and it has a second season. It's a very popular show. People generally really like it, and so I tried it out. And the first season, I had to watch like 60 to 70% of the first season. I just couldn't finish it. Like the whole time, I was really pushing myself because I hear the manga is really good and the anime is getting super good scores, right? And so I'm like, oh, I gotta keep up. But like, I just couldn't finish it, and even the second season was announced, and like part of me was like, should I go back? But I can't, because To Your Eternity for me is an example of the show where like it's just an adventure show. Like stuff just happens. Like there's no goal to your eternity. Now maybe they get one, maybe by the end of the first season there's a goal and it's like, oh, we're gonna do this, but like to me there's no goal. It's just a group of people who are just like traveling and they're just living life. Like I don't care about that. It's like, oh, isn't that slice of life? It's like, no, because slice of life, if it's different, slice of life is just a different energy to it. Like slice of life I feel like still has goals, like last season we watched Do It Yourself. If you haven't seen that show and you're into slice of lives, watch the show. It's pretty good. And that show was a bunch of high school girls, I think. I'm pretty sure it was high school. They were in school. I don't know. And they were part of this club, this DIY club, this do-it-yourself club. And yeah, they were just having a good time. Every episode was just them building other stuff. But there was an overarching goal, which was them having to get enough members to keep the to keep the club going, so they can get funding. And then on top of that, there was also the main goal, which we set up. It was like a few episodes in or so, where they were going to build a treehouse. A treehouse was like their big project. Because they felt like a treehouse, a little secret clubhouse, could get people being like, "Whoa, there's a treehouse. That's cool. We want to join the club." So there was two pretty big, prongs there to kind of lead the show on. Where it was like there was purpose. To Your Eternity to me was just like just a group of people just kind of traveling across the lands, meeting new people, coming across these like beasts that they're fighting or whatever. It's like spirits or something. But it's like I didn't really see like what's the end goal. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I feel about Giant Beast of Ours, where it's like, what is the goal exactly? Because like right now it's just a group of people who are together, they're traveling, they're just like running away from someone who's trying to capture them, and that's sort of it. Like where's the goal? Like is there a place, is there a destination that they have to reach? Are they gonna eventually like fight these guys? Like what is happening? Or is it just gonna be a village to village to city to city to village, and then 12 episodes in we're done? It's just like, okay, so again, I'm not trying to say the show's bad. It's not grabbing me. The first couple episodes were neat, but now we're 3 episodes in and I'm like, episode 3 wasn't like incredible, but because people generally like the show for this season, I'm gonna give it one more episode. I'm gonna try to watch episode 4, but I'm warning y'all right now. if I feel the same way about episode 4 that I do about episode 3, I'm dropping it. Like, I'm not even coming in with it. So we'll see. Vinland Saga Season 2, Episode 2, the show of the season, I think most would agree. Unless you haven't seen Vinland Saga Season 1, then you definitely should. This is good. This is the episode where we're finally meeting Thorfinn, or re-meeting him. So Einar and Thorfinn will earn their freedom by making this wheat farm. So we have a wheat farm. It's sort of a weird thing because they're slaves, but they're going to earn their freedom, which is kind of unheard of. So it's nice, again, you can't like fully, I guess, love this guy because, slaves, especially in America, very touchy topic, as it should be. But less slaves, more so like indentured servants. If you don't know what indentured servant is, that was something that was really big, I believe, around America's Industrial Revolution. I think I'm pretty sure that's the timeline. And indentured servitude was basically like, you have to work for us for a certain amount of time, and if you do that, then you're free, right? It's sort of like this, right? For some reason, I feel like generally indentured servitude was like 7 years. I don't know why that sticks in my mind, like 7 years, but I feel like that was generally the time frame for it. It could be less, could be more, obviously it was dependent. And usually, it was very different than like slaves, like, on like plantations and stuff. That was like America stealing people from another country or another continent and forcing them to do labor because they felt like they were worth less as humans. Very terrible stuff. Indentured servitude was more like, I feel like it only happened when someone owed something to someone, or it was like poor people who didn't have anything else, and so they were like, hey, I'm gonna go into indentured servitude with someone to have work, to have, shelter and food and all that stuff. And then by the time I'm done, I'll be able to like be on my feet and actually be like a human. Maybe not like rich or anything like that, but like I won't be poor anymore. I'll have this time to sort of, work, and I'm pretty sure the story is, a lot of people after their servitude just kind of stuck with them because they're like, well, we don't really know anything else, and now we're going to be getting paid for it or whatever. So, yeah. So anyway, that's why I feel like this is more like where it's not really slaves. I mean, it is, but it's, I feel like it's closer to like being indentured servants. Still slaves. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but at the very least, that there is a silver lining, they can earn their freedom. So Thorfinn stepped in before Einar could make a mistake with the free men. Yeah, because the free men were super antagonistic, and Einar is super hot-headed, and Thorfinn is just like, "Thank you for the food. I'll take care of him. Don't worry." And Einar is definitely trying to get Thorfinn fired up. Because he's like, "Are you okay with this? Will you just let him do that? We have no food. We have a crumble of cheese and 2 bites of bread. Like what, And my whole thing with this is, I was thinking about it. We know Thorfinn. We don't really know the end of season 1 and the start of season 2, like what happened in the gap there, because there's definitely a gap, right? I actually did go back and I sort of looked at season 1 and was like, how did season 1 end again? Like, oh yeah, we remember, with Thorfinn, he was getting dragged away. I don't remember by which group or whatever, but he was being dragged away. So you imagine he like went to prison maybe, or maybe was just kind of sold off as a slave or something. Something big happened because I don't know. So so like my whole thing with with Thorfinn is, to me, I think people could be looking at his characters like, man, why isn't Thorfinn more fired up? And I'm trying to think how to word this. I think there's a few different reasons. One, isn't his like whole family dead? Like wasn't that what happened in season 1? Was that his whole family just got destroyed? I mean, either his whole family got destroyed or he's completely away from them, right? Because he even mentions to Einar, he's like, "Oh, I'm from Iceland," and Einar's like, "Iceland, cool. Where's Iceland?" So like I don't know where they are right now. I don't remember, and I'm sure they told us. But maybe Iceland is just so unbelievably far from them that it's just like no way to get back to his family, something like that, right? So that's that's gotta be hard. But also, I'm pretty sure they're dead though. But also, like, Askeladd died in the end of the first season. I forgot about that, and so that's gotta crush him too, because his whole reason for like living basically was so that he can get stronger and stronger and stronger to properly duel Askeladd and kill him for what he did to his family and his father and all that, his village, all that stuff. So him, Askeladd dying not to his own hands, crushed him. Like those two things together, I think just destroyed his motivation to live, basically. And so now he's just basically a husk, a zombie, And also all that time in between, like, I don't know, he probably went to prison, he might have been tortured. And then finally, when he was completely broken, and they had no more use for him, he was sold off as a slave. And so now he's just kind of here, that's why he says things like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're just going to do our job, and then we earn our freedom, and then whatever, But, I think on top of that, I think Thorfinn's just been here longer. I don't know about how much longer, but he has been here a little longer. So, I think he just knows that, like, hey, messing with them is not going to get you anywhere. Reporting them to the master, not going to get us anywhere. Like, you're fired up about this stuff, it doesn't matter. Like, we just have to roll with it and do the best we can. Because you forget, we're slaves. Like, at the end of the day, we're not free. Like, we really don't have a say in these things, Like, you may think you might have a little bit more of a say because Master is a little nicer, a little more hands-on, letting us earn our freedom, like, But, come on. And then Einar stops in his tracks when he sees this girl. Don't know who the girl is. Maybe it's his daughter or something. I don't know. But that was just a cliche moment, like the hothead. cools down when he sees a girl, and he's like, oh no, you know. So I'm sure that'll come back at some point. The master's son, Omar, doesn't like the farm work. Um, I understand it. I think for the most part, he's seen as this like just like a jerk, But you see that people can't separate Omar from his father, and I think that really gets to him. I mean, it's on one hand you got to count yourself lucky. It's like, oh well, your dad owns a farm, and he probably owns a lot of money, and owns a lot of money. He probably has a lot of money, all that stuff. He's gonna let you inherit a farm. You should be lucky. You should be grateful. His fortune, all that stuff. But then on the other hand, it's like when anyone sees me, all they see is my father. Like that's not that's usually not something that like people like. It's like, no, I'm an individual, I'm my own person, And so it is somewhat childish, but he's even like, I'm gonna earn my name with the blade. While you were farming, I was studying the blade, And so it's just like, we get it, I would like to see more of his character. Hopefully it kind of grounds him a little more, and he's not just like this jerk. Kind of plays more with that whole idea with his dad and all that stuff. So, and then we see that Einar and Thorfinn are similar with how their homes were destroyed. Einar sort of talking about his time, Thorfinn not saying anything, but he is awake and he is listening, and he is, he's connecting the dots. So, hopefully that does make him open up maybe a little bit more. And I don't know if there's gonna be like they're gonna try to escape or anything like that, but we'll see. It'd be interesting, because they're like, oh, you can maybe do this within 3 years. It's like, is this show gonna cover 3 years? Probably not. So I feel like maybe at some point they'll try to escape. We'll see though. We'll see. After that, we got the Misfit of Demon King Academy season 2, episode 2. Yeah, so basically everyone here is a result of a god. Like every one of Anos's people is like, you were here because you were split from a god, you were here because you were chosen, you were here. And it's like, all right, cool, man, cool. Anos has to guess which person is the child of light. He's playing a game with Zeke. Yeah, it's like a mind game. It's like a logic puzzle or whatever. I don't know. And while he's doing that, oh yeah, because like the stakes are like, oh, if you lose, then your magic is cut off for 5 seconds. It's like, okay, did you think you were gonna win? 5 seconds really isn't that much. But as he's doing that, we have all the different fights going on. So we have the shield guy who's taking out Lei. Not cool, right? He has the different orbs and whatever, so he's overpowering him, right? We have the zombie guy who's just draining the magic of Eleanor and Zeshia, right? So that's not cool, right? He's got the zombies, the magic, they're not doing well. And then we have Misha and Sasha who are just getting rocked by Sword Girl. They're hurting. Like Sasha, almost dead, stabbed in the heart. Misha, stabbed as well, still doing a little better than Sasha, but man, right now, it's not looking good for our heroes. Like I said, Lei's taken out, Eleanor and Zeshia are getting drained, and Misha and Sasha pretty much dead, almost dead, I would say, pretty close to dead. And so we have the game going, and it's like, oh, this is right, this is wrong, I'm lying, I'm telling the truth, whatever. The problem when Zeke wins, because Anos forfeits, is that Zeke like takes Melheis's source. He's like, haha, I have won, I have taken the source, because that's like his whole goal, right? And he's like, oh, I don't care. Even if you kill me now, I still won. I still beat the Demon King. I bested him. And then Melheis, just like enters, enters the room, and he's like, what? And so like what Anos did was he created a duplicate source right at the beginning of the game, right before the game started, and just tricked him. It's like, you're an idiot. You're stupid. You did not think of every possible scenario, and that is why you have lost. So yeah, it's just that thing where even though because Anos was there, and he was like, you think because you took away my magic you'd win? You know, like I just outsmarted you. You know, like child's play. You know, and then and then we basically have, you know, everyone winning in the end. You know, Anos's crew. What you think we think we're scrubs? You think we're just sitting down losing to everybody? Pfft, please. So we have Misha creating the floating castle, which is like a Desgard or something like that. Delados. I forget what it was called. But Misha creating the floating castle, and just has all the power, all the power, and then like basically turns the snow girl into like a little snowflake thing. So she's dead. Then we have Lei coming back, and he's like, "You forgot I had multiple sources," and he has like 7, 9 sources, something like that. So it's like you took away one source, but you forgot my others. So now he stabbed the shield guy, dead. And then Eleanor says that emotions reside within the source, not without, or not outside the source. So you may have this like little force field around us, but you can't force field within me. And then blasts the zombie guy. He's evaporated. So, you know, it's just that thing where, you know, like the Blaze Death King's magic was bested by the Demon King's magic. And it's like, yeah, it's like, what do you think? We were that weak? Like have you not heard of us? You know, have you not heard the tale of Anos and his people? Like, come on. You know, I mean, we have shows like this where we have OP characters, and I feel like most of them are bad. Not necessarily because they're just bad at their core, but because OP characters have become so so much more prevalent in today's anime landscape, and because there's so much more of them, they're oversaturating the market, right? And you have to do something to kind of separate yourself from from the crowd, from the rest of the sheep, right? And I feel like this show does a really good job, and I kind of talked about this last episode, but like, you never know how they're going to win. You know, I feel like those OP characters are the ones to watch, because most shows that are bad, you already know. So the thing happens and you're like, oh yeah, I guessed it. And then the episode ends and you're like, why did I watch that? You know, but with something like, you know, with the Misfit show, it's like, I was watching this and I was like, I don't know. Like, I honestly just thought that Anos was going to win. He was just going to win the card game. Like, in my mind, I was like, I only need 9 guesses. It's like, oh, he knows. Like, he's going to play with them, and then the 9th guess is going to be the correct guess, and then he wins. But he didn't. Instead, he created a duplicate source so that Zeke would think he won, waste his 5 seconds, and now Anos can just blast him. You know, like, I didn't think that was going to happen. You know what I mean? And then even just like the side stuff with all the his like crew winning, it's like, yeah, that's that's just icing on the cake. That's like, oh, you thought it was sweet. It is not sweet around here. You know, we will destroy you. So again, next episode, they're traveling. They're bringing the like sun god with them. So that's gonna be a fun time. We're all together, going to this place, going to maybe encounter some more higher up people. So can't wait for that. Next, we have NIER Automata version 1.1a. This is the other show that I've dropped. This show could be good. This show could be great. It's just, for me, it's just not grabbing me. I mean, the world is cool, but again, I was never super into the game. Like, I played the game and I was like, all right, that was fun, but the whole like story behind it, never really super into that. And then even like the way they're delivering the story in this game, I don't really like it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really have as much of a deep dive into why I dropped this as why I dropped the other one. I just, it's not vibing with me. Again, the show could turn out to be great, but I just don't care. I just don't care about this show. I don't know. So yeah, dropping it. Next, we got Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro, Season 2, Episodes 1 through 3. Watch the first 3 episodes of this one. I just love this show. You know what I mean? Like, I understand why some people have gripes with it. I'm not gonna argue with that. I'm not gonna defend the show to the ends of the earth, but it's just fun. I'm also reading the manga. Manga's super fun too. So yeah, Nagatoro, season 2, episodes 1 through 3. We just have a bunch of good stuff here. So they almost reenacted the moment from Slave of Love. That really is one of my favorite things about this show. Is we obviously have Senpai, who I always just call Senpai because he does have a name, and the name is said, but it's said like once or twice, and every other time he's just called Senpai. So I just call him Senpai because everyone else does. So we have Senpai obviously being the super nervous, super anxious, character, and then Nagatoro being super outgoing, teasing him, sort of pushing him or whatever, just kind of mess with him. But then it always reaches a moment, at least one time per episode, usually, where Nagatoro pushes him, and Senpai is like, "All right, I'll call your bluff," and then they're both put themselves in a situation where it's too much, and they're like, "Wait, what do we do?" Neither one of us actually wants to go through with this because it's actually super embarrassing, and it actually kind of peels back the mask that we're both kind of wearing. It's getting too real. So like, perfect example is this moment where water actually does fall on her shoe, and it's like, oh no, because you can tell that Nagatoro actually wasn't going to make him do that. But then now water has fallen on it. She's like, oh no, is he gonna do it? What am I gonna do? I don't actually I don't actually have the courage to say, yeah, clean it up. I wasn't gonna go through with this. And then Senpai is leaning down, and it's like, oh no, he's gonna do it. And then he kind of just washes it off, and it ends with Nagatoro just being like, thanks, and he's like, don't mention it. It's just like this awkward moment because again, that to me, there are like two like aspects of the show that just keep me coming back to it. One is the one I already described, which is them, Nagatoro teasing him. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's usually one of their faults and then they get put into a situation where they're basically calling each other's bluff, but they themselves don't want to call the bluff. You know what I mean? And then there's the other side of it, the second reason, which is just the actual romance aspect to it, where you can tell they both actually do like each other. And so every so often we do get a genuinely sweet moment where there's no teasing, there's no anxiety, there's no nothing. It's just they're just together having a good time, enjoying each other's company. And we'll get to that a little later, but I just have fun with it. Senpai wants to invite Nagatoro somewhere, so that's a nice thing, right? He's finally making a move. In the middle of that, he accidentally uses one of her greetings where he hugs her, but it's a little bit of an inappropriate hug. Not really his fault though. He literally just trips and he falls, and he just try not to fall on his face. And so Nagatoro's like, idiot. But then he can't. She can't really do too much because then her friends come and her friends are like, hey, what's going on here? And so she she can't say that because of her mixed feelings. We have another moment, again, similar to Slave of Love, where he helps her put on her tights, and that's like another one of those moments where she's like, haha, do this, and then where he's like, where she's like, ha, do this, and he's like, okay, I'll do it, and she's like, haha, and he's like, I'm still doing it, and she's like, wait, no, hold on, wait, no, hold on, don't do it, and Nagatoro made a sushi joke, kind of an inappropriate joke, but then again, it's moments where like one of them does something, and it's funny, but then kind of goes too far, and it's like, oh no, wait, I don't actually want to like genuinely hurt you or like make you upset, because that happens a lot, especially again in the beginning of the series, that was a big gripe with people with the show, where they were like, she just seems like a bully, like she's literally making this man cry. It's like, you are correct, and I'm not going to argue with that. But as the show goes on, I think that you learn that they do like each other, and so Nagatoro does tease him, but never gets to the point where she really wants him to be upset. I think the first few episodes, I think it was that because they didn't know each other, and she was just kind of a bully, and also just like someone who didn't really understand emotions. You know, like, you know, we do get little inklings of that here and there where she never really dates anybody. Like, you know, so again, ignorance is not an excuse, but I think that is explaining why she was really harsh in the beginning of the show. The club president gave Senpai some zoo tickets, and so the whole thing there is that he's going to invite Nagatoro. Nagatoro, although doesn't really want to draw though, like she's not an artist, she's not super into drawing, but she does do like all the work in getting him to invite her. You know, because she hears, right? She hears that he has tickets. You know, she hears the club president is like, "Hey, invite the cat girl," and so she, you know, he's like, he's a really just awkward scene where he's like, "Hey, do you like animals?" She's like, "Oh, I love animals," and he's like, "Cool. Do you like drawing?" And she's like, "Not really." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And she's like, "Whoa, no, hold on, hold on. I mean, you know, I do take fine arts, so I do draw and everything." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." And just nothing happens. And then she's like, "So, like, you know, why do you ask?" And then in his mind, he's like, how do I ask her? Oh man, I can't, I can't just come out and like offer to help her draw. It's gonna be super condescending. Like, who am I to teach someone? And also, who am I to say that she's not a good artist? Blah blah blah. And then he can like see, or Nagatoro can see this, and she's like, "Yeah, I draw. I'm not really that good. You're good though. Maybe sometime you should teach me." And then he finally says, "Hey, do you want to come to the zoo?" Blah blah. And it's like, "Oh, great, awesome." So again, she does all the work there, and I love that. Get to the zoo, we're drawing. Again, she doesn't really want to draw. She just wants to enjoy the animals, but she sees that the senpai is really set on this. That's kind of the point of it, is to draw. And so he's apologetic, but Nagatoro, this one time, she sort of bends to him, and she's like, what, I can, because again, in her mind, she wants to be here with him. Like, she does like him the same way he does like her. So in her mind, she's like, I'll be the one to compromise. I'm not gonna force him. I'm not gonna put this on him and like have him have a good time, or have a force him to have a bad time, because I want him to do what I want to do. And then we meet this couple who just sucks. The couple comes in and is like, "Oh, this one's pretty good, but this drawing is trash." Like, ha ha ha, did a grade schooler do this? Ha 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 ha. And then senpai comes up, and he's very, very nervous, but he does defend her, and he says, "Hey, don't make fun of stuff that people have put a lot of heart into, put a lot of hard work into. That's not cool. Like, whoever drew this is really trying, and really this is their hard work. Like, what do you, like, who are you to laugh at it?" Like, and then they kind of egg him on, because again, he's not a very confident person, not a very imposing person. And then Nagatoro comes, and they flip the script. Nagatoro comes and is like, "Oh yeah, that's my drawing, and it is very serious. It is not a joke drawing. What were you saying?" And they're like, "Okay, cool, bye." And then they leave. And it was a nice moment there again, them standing up for each other. But then also we get the flashback of just a few moments ago, where Nagatoro did hear him stand up for her, and it's like, oh, great moment, awesome. And then we have the moment where Nagatoro drew senpai. They're like, "Oh, why, I wonder why she's drawn from so far away." It's like, "Oh, I was drawing him." And it's even like, "Oh, it's not like a particularly good drawing, but it is a very purposeful drawing." And it's like, it's just, again, like, she doesn't draw, but like, for her to do that is such a nice moment. And then Nagatoro found oh, well, a little before that, we realized that senpai doesn't know Nagatoro's first name, which he feels very embarrassed about, because he's like, "Oh, I feel like I should know that." And then Nagatoro finds him in the locker, because he was hiding there. He's trying to return her phone. And it's nice, because for a moment you're like, oh, she's gonna out him, but then she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I found your phone." It is a nice moment, because she's able to distract them and bring him out. And she even says, like, "Okay, this was like legitimately creepy, you know, like, you know, because we know that, you know, she calls him a creep a lot to tease him, but in this moment she's like, no, like for real though, this was something really creepy that you did, you know. But she forgives him because again, she likes him, but also like, I feel like she understands why he did it, and it was good intentions. Um, and then what do we have? And then we have like the race, basically at the end of the episode where the club president just wearing a bunny outfit. I guess it's like art. It's like some sort of like art thing that she's doing. Um, and then Nagatoro starts to help Senpai with his injured ankle because he's running with it. And then there's a thing where he's like, do you feel guilty for this because you sort of made me run. But then again, she didn't know, so I feel like she can feel guilty, but I don't feel like. I mean, in any case, Senpai wouldn't really do that to her. But also in this case, like, well, she didn't know. She didn't know that your ankle was hurt, So then she starts carrying him, and it's funny because he's like, "Man, you're so strong," and then Nagatoro's like struggling. And it's like, and she's like, "Hey, no, don't help me to hurt yourself." That's not the goal. It's not what I want. And then all of the friends start to help him, and it's like, okay, cool, we're together, we're gonna win this. Tortoise in the hair, and we have a great moment where they win. Like they do pass the club they do the finish line first, but then the referee is like, "You're disqualified," and Senpai's like, "You know what? That's fair. That's fair." Because if for anime, it is a very nice moment with like them all helping together, passing the club president. But then in realistic terms, it's like, I don't think you're allowed to carry someone across the finish line. I also don't think you're allowed to like just like run together, and so it's a nice comedic beat where it's like, oh yeah, they won, disqualified. You know what? That's fair. That's I'm not gonna. None of us are gonna argue with that. And then we have the very end, which is setting up the next episode, which I'm excited for, where Nagatoro is sick. He's very much caring about her. He goes there to give some homework, and then Nagatoro's older sister catches him, doesn't know him, and is gonna call the police. And then he's like, no, I'm bringing the homework. I swear, I'm from school. And she's like, oh, you're Senpai-kun. Ooh, okay, gotcha. Let's go. All right, let's have some fun. So this episode, I imagine, is gonna be her kind of messing with him, and her probably messing with Nagatoro too. Although Nagatoro is sick, so I don't really know how hard, how hard she's gonna let her have it. But also maybe a nice moment where Senpai is coming in to help Nagatoro when she's sick. It's usually something that a very close friend will do. So I'm sure we'll get some good stuff there. And I just love the show. It's nice, it's funny, but there is some heart to it. So then we're making some progress, guys. This is a long episode. Like, it's already over 2 hours. Jesus. Or maybe with editing, we might be a little less than 2 hours right now. But, already 2 hours. All right. Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible, episode 1. Yeah, I really enjoy the show. This is a show where I feel like when I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know if I like this gimmick. Let me tell you guys, I love this gimmick. It's a great gimmick. So Kubo is the only one that really notices Shirashi. I'm just gonna say Shirashi. He's literally invisible. He's visible to everybody unless he super brings attention to himself. No one knows. Like, all of his classmates just think that he skips school every day, But no, Kubo's here, or no, Shirashi's here every day, but Kubo's the only one that can see him, and Kubo's like a super popular person, so it's a very classic dynamic there. And so this show is basically just different situations that Kubo puts Shirashi in for her own amusement, But also, aside from that, I do feel like she is really helping him. Because right now he is just a background character, and with everything she does, it is a little bit of a tease, but it is like, I want you to be a main character, like all the stuff that I'm making you do is something a main character would do. And, I feel like deep down he does, he does appreciate that. So like, Shirashi got caught standing up. So it's like, oh, it's a moment where, I want to test how far you know how far we can bring this. If you were to stand up in class, would people notice you? And he does, but it was very funny. And then he calls him a villainess, and she's like, hey, that's not fair. That's not fair. He's like, if anything, I'm your heroine. I'm the one to save the day. I'm the one to help you out. And you gotta see both sides. You gotta see both sides of it. I feel like in this instance they're not mutually exclusive. Again, another moment where she wants to test things. She sits on his lap, and nobody notices, right? Because he brought to her attention one day that, like, if someone were to sit in a chair, they were to sit in his lap, they wouldn't even notice because they just don't see him there. And that's true for this one as well. Let's see, they help each other with the answer. So, like, no one has ever called on Shirashi ever because he doesn't bring attention to himself, so no one ever sees him. So then she calls for the answer. She says, I don't know the answer, but Shirashi does. It's like, oh, Shirashi's here? Oh, I wonder if he's smart, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't know the answer. But then Kubo, being the friend, says, hey, I actually know the answer. Here's the answer. And he gives the right answer, and it's great. It's awesome. So, nice moment there where, again, he is like a main character. He gets called on, right? Something he's never experienced before. And then Kubo gets called on again. and it's like, it's the one question she doesn't know the answer to. And she's like, hey, you remember before how, like, I had your back and I was hoping that you would have my back? Do you know the answer? And he does. He doesn't really know it. He kind of has like a good guess. And but it's nice little reciprocation there. And then Shirashi finally got the tissues from this dude that was handing out tissues to people. So he completely forgot about buying the video game he wanted to buy. So again, it's more adding to the character and like his everyday life of like these like little wins that he has, and we have a very nice moment where they take a selfie together. The whole point of that was that the phone camera, all phone cameras nowadays, they like recognize the face, right? And they'll like, that helps like with like the quality of the picture, all that stuff. And so she was testing out like, how close do you have to be for my phone camera to recognize your face? And it did. It recognized the face. And again, that was a nice moment with Shirashi, like, oh man, the phone recognized me. It sees me as a person. But also, Kubo kind of messing with him, being like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna let you off easy today. I'm not gonna make you do anything. And then even to herself, she's like, I've already been spoiled today, because again, like deep down, like she likes him, and I think he likes her too. It's just this like fun little, teasing relationship, between who they are as people. So the fact that she was able to get close to him, take a picture, she's like, listen, I'm happy, and then even further than that, they trade, Pine information, which is their little parody offline. And so she's already super happy about that as well. And, she mentions to him like, oh, we should hang out sometime. And he's like, oh, she didn't really mean that. And then she messages him, hey, we should hang out sometime. And then he's like, all right. A super weird answer to that proposition. But happy on his end because he's like, oh man, she really wants to hang out with me. But then super happy on her end where she's like, he said yes. So yeah, you love to see it. And so again, yeah, I just really love the show. I love the gimmick. I really hope it doesn't get old because I love it. And it's just two fun characters doing fun things. Again, those are shows that are always nice. So next we got Trigun Stampede episode 1. This show is great too. This is one that I wasn't sure I was gonna check out because people online, like, I just couldn't find a clear answer on if this was a full like reboot, like a retelling, or if it was like a sort of sequel. Like I couldn't get a thing, but from what I gathered, this is a retelling. This is something where they're just telling the story over again in different ways, or sort of changing around characters, changing around plot lines. So from what I understand, you can completely watch this without watching original Trigun. I do want to watch original Trigun at some point, but you don't have to. And also like the other thing kind of making me want to watch it was Studio Orange did the animation for this, which they did Beastars, and then also a show that I liked even more and I wish they would do more seasons to is Land of the Lustrous. If you haven't seen Land of the Lustrous, please watch it because it is incredible. And just like, Studio Orange is like the studio where it's like, if there's ever going to be a 3D anime made, I want them to do it because they are really good at it. It seems like the mom kind of gave everything so her kids could live, which we find out is the main character's mother and the brother. So that was really sad. It was a very like Superman type thing where it's like, the world is being destroyed. We're gonna ship you off to another planet so you can live. Then we have Meryl and Roberto. They're both reporters. Nice little dynamic between them. They're in no man's land. So again, we're kind of just building up the world, the characters, all that stuff. We have the July military police who are looking for the humanoid Typhoon. A super like infamous criminal, I guess, maybe even killer. I don't, Turns out that Vash, who's our main character, he is Vash the Stampede. He is known as the humanoid Typhoon. He is like the criminal that they are after, and Meryl and Roberto find him. And they don't give him away completely, which I thought was nice, but then also it's because they're like, oh, we're going to try to clear his name. We're going to get a good story and, investigate, I guess. But it turns out that Vash is actually maybe not a bad person. Maybe he's, one of those people that just gets a bad rap. Because, people in this village love him, so much so that, they bring him to this little water plant that gives them clean water that has been broken down. And, he wants to be there to help. He's like analyzing everything. I want to be there to help. I've already saved the village at one point, so he's like a hero to them. So it's like, how can he be a hero and also a villain? And so then the July police finally catch up with them, and they're gonna take him out basically. And we don't want that. We like Vash. And so Roberto was like, why don't you do a duel? If you're a real man, you'll duel him. And Vash doesn't like that because Vash seemingly is he doesn't like fighting, right? He doesn't duel. He doesn't like fighting. He doesn't want this. And the July police are like, heck yeah, we'll win, easy. And this is where it gets crazy, because the July captain decides, forget the duel. I'm gonna throw my gun. Vash is like, oh, he's throwing his gun. What's happening? You're like, I'm not gonna shoot. He's not gonna shoot. What do we do? He takes out a missile launcher and fires a cluster bomb into the air. And now there's like 75 missiles that are raining down. And he's like, I don't care if I take you out with me. Just like, why did this escalate so quickly? What you are a policeman. You should be taking him in for justice, not killing him, yourself, your comrades, and the village. That is crazy suicidal. What? And so Vash just turns up the heat, right? Like we're talking some crazy, like you're giving me like Cowboy Bebop vibes, you're giving me Licorice Recoil vibes. Like he's going nuts. Where he first dodges this man's bullets at point blank range. Like this man is probably points his gun maybe less than 6 inches from this man's body, and he dodges like 3 or 4 bullets in a row. Like I don't know, like kicks him or something. He goes away. Catches the single bullet that he needs because he's out of bullets. So he catches a single bullet from Meryl, puts it in his gun, fires or like throws a rock. He throws a rock or something at the cluster, shoots the rock. Rock pieces go everywhere. The bullet ricochets a million times and basically just detonates all of the bombs in midair. That way they don't, hit the village and the people and kill everyone. It just blows your mind completely of just like, oh, we get it. We get why he's so infamous. Like he does have skills. He just seemingly doesn't want to kill other people. That's why he didn't want to participate in the duel. Because now we look back at it and we're like, oh, he would have won. I guess he didn't have any bullets, so that would have been a tough win. But just talking skill based, he would have destroyed this man. But again, it's even more so. Again, not even the whole like killing thing, but he saved everyone. Like he put his life on the line. Like imagine if he didn't get any more bullets, he would have just died. So now we're starting to see like this, this weird dichotomy with, okay, well he seems like a good person, so why is he wanted? You're like, what exactly has he done? I'm sure maybe next episode we'll get a little more backstory into that. And then at the end, we see some more kind of teeing up of characters where Vash's brother, who's known as Millions Knives, is alive, and he sounds like a monster. Um, he killed a bunch of people, even his, their own family. Yeah, like that's, oof, not a big fan of the brother. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the show. Again, the animation is great. I already mentioned Studio Orange, but also like our little cast of characters we're gathering right now are fun and interesting. Um, I just want to see more, I guess. Now we have High Card, episode 1. Um, we have there's a crazy opening. We have C4, a helicopter, a missile, um, a lot of stuff happening. It's not really explained what's happening, but basically it's the setup where we have the cards, the magical cards they left out of the briefcase, and they got scattered, I guess, all over the world. And so they're like magical cards. We don't know what they do yet, but that's the story, isn't it? um, then we meet our main character Finn, who is finding ways to steal from people. It's basically because he's poor, and so he's trying to make some money. The guy won't buy his stuff because he doesn't buy stolen goods. Um, but I guess the whole point is because he looks after a bunch of people. Like, I don't know if this is like a school or an orphanage or something. Um, and that place he looks after. I guess that's how he's always made money to help the guy, the main owner or whatever, pay his rent and all that. They're in a deep way though, because apparently the like the city or whatever, they're like, oh, don't worry about paying no more. We're gonna basically bulldoze this place and put an apartment complex here, so you're all good. Don't worry about it. It's like, ooh, that's not what you want to hear. um, and the other thing with him with like selling stuff, is he has his card, and he's like, oh, that could be worth a fortune. And he's like, no, I'm not selling this. So again, we're kind of meeting these cards, seeing what they're all about. There's definitely something special about it. Now we're at the casino. He's really good at gambling. We're not sure why. He wins a lot of money. It's like, okay, this is good. This is good. And then the old man comes in, just wrecks him. Just gets all the crazy poker stuff, winning left and right. Steals all of his money. I mean, wins all of his money. Left him in shambles. And there's definitely something magical happening here. Later we learn that it's the glove. He has a card. I guess the card's power is luck, right? We still don't know what Finn's card is all about. He just kind of sees it as his good luck charm. And then Lucky is accused of cheating, which does happen in casinos. Like if someone is winning enough, they'll sort of stop that guy from winning. Or the casino has cameras everywhere, so they'll kind of keep an eye on him. Like, is he cheating? Because generally casinos, you don't have good odds. Like the house always wins, right? That's a very famous saying. So if someone keeps winning and winning and winning, and they win $50 million in one night, it's like something is afoot. And this is basically where the whole show turns, and it's like, oh, we're kind of seeing a glimpse of what the show really is. So we have this man Bobby, and so I also just want to mention a lot of these names. I don't know if they're mentioned in the show. I just kind of looked up the names because I don't want to be like this guy, that guy, this guy. I just have to give them names. So Bobby is the guy who has the marbles, and he's just turning everyone into marbles. Pretty sick way, a pretty sick way to injure and or kill people, turning them into marbles. And they get fire marbles too. Really like clever like power, whoever wrote this, that's very very clever, very very unique. And we had Chris, who also has a card. I'm not really sure what his card does. It's like calorie something, so I think maybe it just makes him like have a lot of energy, maybe like really strong. I don't quite know. And then so they're fighting. They're basically fighting over cards, right? Like, I want to take your card, because these cards are very special. They're very powerful. If you know about them, you know about them. And let's see. I think I believe Lucky dies. Lucky gets shot. So yeah, he's done. And his card is now not his anymore. And then we have this crazy car scene chase. Finn, Bobby, and Chris, they all crashed their cars. And they're not doing well. Not doing well. When you crash a car, it turns out you're physically not very healthy. So again, it's just going to show more and more like how powerful these cards are, and like I'm sure at some point we're gonna see this crazy overarching like story of like everyone hunting cards, like card hunters, right? And so we have Finn and Chris who are meeting each other, and he's like, "Oh, give me the card, give me the card, Finn." And then Bobby comes out of nowhere, just like plucks this dude, kills him basically, and then now it's Bobby and Finn who are at odds, and Finn uses his card. We finally see what his card does, and his card is a gun, I guess. And also I think the cards, there is like a hierarchy of the cards, because when he pulls out his card, Bobby's like, "Whoa, a two of spades." So I think maybe there is some sort of hierarchy, which we might learn a little bit later. He pulls out a gun. He fires a marble. This dude fires a bullet that shoots through the marble and slices his arm up, and he like falls over. I don't know if he's dead, but he's done for now. And then we see Chris. Chris is back up, and it's like, what is happening? No one dies, and then they basically point guns at each other. They're at a standoff. That's how it ends. So, a very interesting first episode. This whole concept between the cards and the magic and the hunters and all that stuff. I'm again very, very interested in first episode. I don't really have too much more to say about it, just because I think the next episode is gonna, like episodes 2 and 3. I'm sure we'll get way more into what the world is and more characters and all that stuff. But yeah, really cool start. Next we got KAINA of the Great Snow Sea, episode 1. So yeah, there's another one. I saw some comparisons to Nausicaa, which is a Ghibli movie. I see it. I understand it. I think so far, episode 1 of this, it sets up a really nice world. Now I need to set up more character based stuff, and I think that's what they're gonna do. But I'm just kind of the energy I'm getting, where it's like, cool world. What about the characters though? But I think next episode we're gonna deep dive into that. But so basically we have KAINA, who caught a bug with eggs. That's like a big deal, because just first off, catching food is important so they can eat. But also with eggs, I guess that's like, ooh, that's nice. Because eggs are eggs. Eggs are tasty, right? And we get more of the world there. Aside from the characters of like, oh, they're kind of like hunting food and whatever. Now we get more of the world, where it's like, okay, world's not doing well. There are growing holes in the canopy, which is not good. The water's getting low. The orbital spire tree is dying. Like, all the people are discussing this and are like, man, we're old. Like, we're gonna die soon. But like, KAINA has to live in this. Like, man, he's already under so much pressure, so much stress. Like, man, this sucks. Then we get more of the world, where apparently when there were other villages, because apparently this village that they're in, only village left on the canopy. There used to be billboard readers, and I guess they would like share these like texts, and the whole point of it was like, maybe there was like knowledge to be had, maybe to better their world, advance maybe some technology or something. But now there's no more other villages, and there's only one man who can even read the billboards anymore. So like, is it worth it? Like, again, this world is really being set up as really sad and dreary and no hope. And then KAINA brings to his attention, he's like, hey, what about the snow sea? I see stuff moving, and they're like, oh, it's probably just like clusters of bugs and whatever. Like, what if it's not clusters? What if it's humans? And he's like, man, no one knows what's under the snow sea. Like, no one knows. So it could be humans, it could not be. Are you going to be the one to do it? And he's like, no, I don't think so. I just just curious, right? So that kind of sets that up perfectly, because then the rest of the episode is us talking about the snow sea, and there are people riding some sort of creatures in the snow sea. So we see people are down there, and there's very much like pretty much a whole civilization down there. So we have a nice little fight scene here where they are going after this floater. Then there's these Galgian troops who are here to, I guess, kill our characters, who are Princess Riria and just also other people as well. Again, we're not quite sure their motivations, like why they're doing this. Again, we haven't learned enough about them to know that. but they are trouble, and we have a nice fight scene, like I said, of them kind of going back and forth. Princess Riria's people are not doing well because, I mean, their technology just isn't, it's just not up to snuff. And so everyone basically sacrifices themselves. Princess Riria is able to fly away on the floater thing to get away from them. And then she is grabbed by KAINA out of the floater all the way up in the canopy. So, again, I think that this sets up a really nice story because people in the canopy and the people in the snow sea, they're obviously separated from each other, right? They don't know too much about each other's worlds. And so now that Riri is up there, a whole bevy of information and knowledge, I bet, is about to get spilled. Of like, whoa, what's happening? That, whoa, you're a person? You're from down there? Are there other people? What's going on? Do you guys have water and food? And, and I'm sure the other way will work as well, where it's like, whoa, what is this place? All the way up here, like we don't really go up here, so yeah, that I feel like is what the story kind of is two worlds colliding and like how they are able, hopefully be able to help each other out. So yeah, that's the whole thing where it's like more about the world. I think we learned a lot about KAINA and the canopy. I think next episode is going to be a lot of Riria and the Snow Sea, and I'm here for it, man. It's again they've set up a cool world so far. Just keep giving me more, and I'm sure this show will be solid. Next we have the Fire Hunter, episode 1. Not too much here, although I'm in. Like kind of what they set up. It's cool. So a fire hunter dies, leaving behind his dog and sickle. That's apparently just what happens. And so then we have Toko, who's the main character. Toko's aunt. I always say aunt, but I know it's probably aunt. Toko's aunt says she should go to the capital to return the dog, sickle, and stone. So those are all the things that the hunter left behind. Because they're not hers. Like the dog, the sickle, the stone, they're not hers. Like they belong to the capital, who like employs all the fire hunters and stuff. Like you should return them so that maybe another fire hunter can get them or whatever. And also, like those things might cause us trouble, all that stuff, right? So yeah, so that's kind of set up there. As we got fire hunters and we have Toko having the fire hunter stuff. Then we see that fire fiends kill Toko's family, which is basically the knowledge of, okay, so the family she's living with is not her actual family. Her parents died, her siblings I think died and stuff too, and so they kind of just took her in. I think that yeah, because then even like the sister like hates her and is like, oh, I hate you, you came around, you're just taking up space, taking up food, and now you're leaving, you kind of like mooch off of us and now you leave, and it's like, that's tough. That's a tough situation. And also on top of that, it's like everyone blames her for the fire hunter's death, which maybe I'm wrong, but I don't necessarily think that's fair. Like to just say the fire hunter died because of her. Like, I don't know. You guys think differently? Like, do you think it's her fault? Like, I mean, I guess you can say like, oh, well, the fire hunter was protecting her from the monster. It's like, yeah, but that's also his job. Like he is a fire hunter, so it's like, why wouldn't he do that? I don't know. We have a nice thing with the collection truck is like a huge special occurrence because the collection truck comes, I think, once every 6 months, they said, and it buys stuff. So if you have stuff to sell, it can buy stuff for you, give you a little bit of money, but also it comes with goods, goods that you would have never gotten just in the village. So it's a nice thing, and the reason why that's important is because everything's sort of colliding. So now Toko is going to use the collection truck to go to the capital and return everything. It's going to be a really long journey. We have Enji, who seems really nice. He's one of like the people who ride and operate the truck. It really looks more like a train to me, but anyway. And he's like, hey man, it's gonna be a very dangerous trip, it's like, and even like, don't sugarcoat it, it's like, yeah, like it's gonna be tough, like we, it's not gonna be pleasant, there are things that are gonna be very difficult. There might be people, I imagine, these collection trucks might be susceptible to some sort of like pirates, but also like it's gonna be a long journey. Like it's going to take a while for us to get to the capital because we have many, many, many other stops to make, you know, and then we don't just go to the capital and leave. Like, we stay at the capital for a while. So like, if all goes well, you're probably not going to be back home for like 2 years, and that's like best case scenario. You know, so again, you know, I appreciate Enji and the others, you know, like the main captain that kind of talks to her, for like telling her everything, you know, being like, oh, it's gonna be great. Like, no, like, are you sure? And I love Toko being like, I'm ready to go. I made peace. You know, she brings up like her parents' graves. Like, I'm going. Like this is my purpose. So yeah, again, a cool setup. You know, I would love to learn more about the fire hunters. And then we have, you know, Toko going on this journey, going to some other villages. Maybe Toko becomes a fire hunter. That would be kind of neat. But yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. And then we got a couple more. This is a long episode. We have Inspector, season 2, episode 1. Yeah, this is a show, season 2. I watched the first season when it came out like a few years ago. I always thought it was really interesting. I didn't love it, but I thought it was interesting. So I was like, I gotta do season 2, right? So yeah, this is episode 1 though. I don't think there's a lot to talk about. I feel like it's mostly like recap and then sort of just like introducing you to the characters and like the premise of the show. Because mostly we just like, okay, so we have Kodoko, who is the goddess of wisdom. We have Kuro, who is like her boyfriend, technically, I guess. I don't quite remember if they're actually together or not. Are they? I don't remember. Those are the main characters, right? And then we have, you know, nice little like, you know, beginners mission. Again, I feel like the point of this is just to kind of tell, like, you know, remind the viewer to be like, hey, remember this show? Because then we have a ghost who is scared of a noise in a doll, which is very funny, right? Because you think, oh, the noises and stuff is supernatural, so it's funny that supernatural is afraid of supernatural. It turns out that it was just the manager trying to hide a lizard pet. The lizard pet was making noises, and so it's like, oh, well then, you know, why doesn't he just come clean? It's like, well, probably not allowed to really have lizards. So if he get caught for that, it'd be trouble for him. So now he just kind of like makes noise in the apartment to like blame it on it. Oh, it's a supernatural thing. Don't look over here at my lizard. And so yeah, and then they get further into the real supernatural stuff, and the doll was taken by a guy who had a wrestling injury, so that's like his plight, and now he's like, oh, it's like a wrestling spirit that they have to fight. And again, more so, just reminding you of what the show is and the characters are. We see Kuro fight, and we remember that, oh right, he's immortal, so just keep coming back, so he can't be killed. And then he can also he can't quite see the future. He can more so just like pick the future, which is different. Which is like his like 1-2 punch of like, oh, if he dies, then he can come back and be like, oh, so don't do that. Let me pick this future, you know. And then, you know, we have Kodoko, who comes in the clutch and helps him, stabs the little beetle wrestler in the back, takes him out. And then yeah, that's pretty much the episode. You know, like I said, there's not really much to talk about because the whole episode, I feel like, is just like, hey, season 2 of the show, if you forgot about what the show is, here's Kodoko, here's Kuro, and here's what happens. You know, so not a really big first episode. I feel like episode 2 and 3 is where we're gonna really get more into it. But yeah, again, I'm back for the ride. And again, it did do a good job because I forgot a lot about both these characters, and you kind of remember how like, oh, this show is just kind of like Scooby-Doo in a sense, where it's like, yeah, we're just kind of solving mysteries, you know, like spiritual mysteries. So that's fun. And then the final show I will talk about today is Tokyo Revengers season 2 episode 1. Tokyo Revengers is another show where I watched so long ago, and I kind of fell off of it at the end. Like, I still finished the show, but I was kind of just like speeding through it. So I really didn't remember what happened, so I did actually go back and like read about like the sort of ending of the show, because, you know, Tokyo Revengers is one of the most highly anticipated shows this season, so I was like, I should probably give it another chance, you know. So we're doing episode 1 today, and I'm in, I think, you know, I'm I'm back in. I don't know why I fell off. Maybe there's just other shows that I wanted to watch more, and so I kind of just sped through it. But yeah, so episode 1 we got Kazutora attacks Takemichi. It was more so out of just like frustration than anything else. We learned some things that Mikey is gone. He's really nowhere to be seen, and Draken is dead. Right? He's on death row, so he got killed. Very sad stuff. Stuff that I forgot, and now they're being said, and I'm like, oh no, Draken was cool, right? And so basically, where this is being set up is that Toman has gotten really big and out of control, right? It's sort of strayed away from what Mikey's original vision was for the organization, and so now it is Takemichi and Kazutora sort of helping him, and they're like, we want to restore this. We want to clean out the waste and bring Toman to its former glory. And so with that, we're learning more stuff about what's happening. Because again, Takemichi coming back into this reality. He's like a fish out of water. He's like, hey, so what's going on? So we have Mikey, who's apparently sent for the missing Mitsuya. And while Kisuke and Takemichi, or while Kisuke had Takemichi tied up, Mikey had Pachin and Payen killed. So while Mikey is gone, he is still very much active. And so basically what we're thinking is that Mikey is purging old Toman members, and he doesn't trust his old friends anymore. So I guess that Mikey, kind of the conclusion that they come to because of all of this is that Kisuke has corrupted Mikey. Kisuke has caused Mikey to stray from the path. Maybe it's the money, maybe it's whatever it is. And so I think that's kind of their goal too, is to get at Kisuke, take him out, and like bring Mikey back. Like, hey, like we know that this is not what you wanted for these people. This is supposed to be something that we can rely on. We can rely on each other to death, and you're taking out old members. Like that's so contradictory. And then Kazutora and Chifuyu were approached by Naoto about revenge. So again, we're getting a little bit of backstory there. Remember, Naoto is the brother of Hinata. So that's kind of how that all happened. And then we realized that Kisuke gave the order for the Toman member to crash his car that killed Hinata. Right? So that, so that's kind of what they learned. So now it's even like double. Like we gotta go after Kisuke. Like he is the cause of all of this. And then Naoto arrests Kazutora and Takemichi, and it's like, whoa, what's happening? What's going on here? Why is Naoto doing this? He's on our side. But then he shows us this video that Chifuyu secretly filmed a meeting where Takemichi ordered Akun to kill someone. So there's a lot of names, especially in the first episode of a season. Like there's so much going on, but basically we see that because there's another video where Takemichi is like outraged, and we see that Kisuke tricked Takemichi into killing Hinata. So Naoto and Takemichi have come to this conclusion that Kisuke has some sort of obsession with Takemichi and Hinata. Like he is always the one who gets Hinata killed in one way or another. Why? What does he know? Now, are we going to get to a point where it's like, oh, Kisuke can also travel through time? Like, we got two like time travelers, time warriors. I don't know. But, if that's the case, there's something going on here. Why does this always happen? It always leads here. So now that is a setup for the whole season, I feel like, where Takemichi now has his goal. We got to take out Kisuke. We got to take out the old Black Dragon people. We gotta save Hinata, which will save Hinata. Also bring back Mikey. Make Mikey realize that this is not really what he wants. He has been poisoned. And Naoto and Takemichi can't really meet anymore because it'd be weird. He's gonna be, because he is here for the instigation of a murder. So it's gonna be tough. So they clap hands, and he's in the past. He's bowling with Hinata. And he meets someone. I don't know who that is that he sees, but he's like pale as a ghost when he sees him. I don't know if that's Kisuke. It might be. I don't I don't quite remember. Again, like jumping back and forth so frequently, especially between like, here's what they look like as adults and here's what they look like as kids. It's like, is that you? So I don't quite know that, but it is definitely someone important. That's like, whoa. But yeah, I'm excited to watch the rest of it. Again, like I'm sort of back in. I'm like, okay, I don't understand. We have a goal, we have a mission. Let's do it. You know. But yeah, that is everything. Really long one today. About an hour longer than they usually are. But like I said, there was 21 shows to cover, albeit 2 of them were dropped, but still 19 shows to cover. It's gonna be about that much next week. So we'll do it. And, you know, and again, a lot of setup too, so a lot of setup to discuss and all that. But yeah, I think all these, for the most part, are great setups. They're, you know, very interesting. Obviously, you know, anything could be dropped at any moment if they just don't progress. But yeah, great stuff. Can't wait to watch more of them. Yeah, let me know if there's any here that you're not really feeling. Maybe you're kind of on the edge about, or maybe there's some shows that I am not watching that I should. I mean, I feel like I'm watching all of them, but you know, let me know. And yeah, super excited. I guess that's it. Again, this episode's long enough. That is it. Have a good day, everyone. Until next time, watch more anime.